This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, it's 3 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. If everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, great. Welcome everyone to today's meeting. Before we get started, we would like to take just a couple minutes to thank Supervisor Bill Guy for all his years of service, his mentorship, all his contributions to the board, the district, Gateway community, and for all he's done within his own community of Pelican Preserve. So, you know, I appreciated it. When I was first started, Bill, I think you kind of provided some valuable mentoring for me before I stepped in, and it's been something that I've appreciated through the years, and I'm gonna hate to see you go. Big shoes to fill, and I'm glad you were able to make it today. So thank you very much, and I don't know if anyone else has any comments, feel free, and then we'll continue on.
Been a long time, Bill.
What's that?
Been a long time. What you gonna do with all your spare time now?
I don't know.
I know somebody else is looking. Her name's Nancy. Give her a call.
Any other comments?
You said it all.
Great. Okay, we will move on to, I'll do a quick roll call. We've got Supervisor Tinkle, Supervisor Banks, Supervisor Guy, Supervisor Welsh, and Supervisor Gephardt is not here today. We've got District Attorney, District Engineer, and we've got district staff, District Manager, and Assistant District Manager. So with that being said, we'll go into public comment.
Skipped approval, final agenda.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we get there, we need approval of the final agenda for today. So just a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I'll get used to this new schedule at some point, just about the time we go to change it.
Well, I do have a question. Got an email late today. Did we cancel out the FPL, or is that already reflected?
Good catch. Two things. The FPL presentation that is moved to the December 1st meeting, but then the roundabout needs to be canceled or dismissed or not taken up. The county has chosen to rebid that.
So that,
with those changes, I would amend my original.
And I'll second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay, now we will move into public comment.
There are none.
Running to the mic.
We are ahead of schedule. Okay.
You're gonna make that ball game, yeah.
So we've already done our achievement recognitions. Is there any additional recognitions or call outs from staff?
The holidays are coming. Just have patience with us. Staff like to take time off to be with their family. And we try to allow that as much as we can and not have everybody off at the same time. So staff has been working very hard through the hurricane, through the start of the fiscal year, the end of the fiscal year. So I just want to give high praise to them. We're plugging along as fast as we can.
And do we have any comments or points of discussion for item 7A, committees and reports, specifically Pelican feedback?
Well, we have to accept a resignation and
Two
appointments.
resignations and 2 appointments. Mr. Zantner and Mrs. Pancaw both resigned from PPAC, and their 2 replacements were named.
Do we need to approve that here?
Yes.
I would recommend that it be acknowledging the resignation.
Yes.
It's appropriate to acknowledge it.
So we acknowledge the
Yes.
resignation.
Yes.
And-
Start with A.
And
The The Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee made recommendations for the two that are provided in your packet, so it would be prudent for you all to approve those appointments to the Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee.
So do you have a motion to approve the new appointees to PPAC, Sharon Corty?
So
And-
moved.
And,
There you go.
and we'll do them separately or together?
Do them together. I would suggest the motion could combine, be acknowledge the resignations and approve the appointments.
Okay, so the motion is to acknowledge the resignations and to approve the new appointees of Sharon Corty and Margaret Hall.
I'll second it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I think that was unanimous. Great. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. And for Doug and Carol, new exciting opportunities for you. Okay, moving on to 8A. So this is approval of the minutes from October 20th.
I didn't have anything.
Me neither.
A motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve consent agenda 9A and B.
I'll
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? Actually, I don't think we have any. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And then we'll move to 10A, district engineer.
Good afternoon, Stephen Agapi, Tetra Tech District Engineer. Wait for that to load. We have our task authorization update today, and then we also have another item on the agenda for a task authorization for the admin building and to go over the preliminary floor plan. So first up, we have a couple of utility items. The irrigation meter replacement project is it's moving forward. We have a quote from a contractor. We're waiting to move forward and issue a PO for that. The irrigation pump station generator and the lower Hawthorne well, both of those are in various states, either in permitting or about to be approved by SRF in November. So in November 30th, after the SRF approves funds for those projects, they'll be able to continue forward. Irrigation enforcement improvements. Tomorrow we plan on submitting 30% design drawings for review by staff. Bond validation assistance. We're working on updating the supplement report right now. The flowway weir adjustments are out to bid right now. We should receive all those bids by the 4th of January. We've had a couple questions come in so far, but nothing major, mainly just asking for the documents. So there's been no major comments yet. Griffin utility relocation, as Chelsea mentioned, the county pulled the bids on that and they're going to rebid those. Aerator FPL assistance, we've kind of been put on the back burner with FP&L since all the storms. So we had a good track record with them up until Ian, and then we kind of, got pushed to the side while they get reestablished. Phase 2, year 2 lake bank restoration. We had our pre-construction meeting on Tuesday with Met Tower, the contractor, and they plan on starting in Silver Lakes on Lake 85 and 88 in December. So that's the plan right now. Villa Circle resurfacing. We're wrapping up the drawings right now. We'll have those to Keith tomorrow for his review. The Gateway Storage Building, I have 75% plans from our architect and our structural engineers. We finalized a site location with staff on Tuesday. So the next step is to finish the site plan and get that into permitting. The admin building, I'm going to let Eric Fye come up and talk about that after I go through the rest of these. SRF Lake Bank Restoration Facilities Plan. So we're in the process of writing the report right now. And I think, Ed, you had a question at the last meeting as to the timing of SRF and how that was all going to work out. I talked to Pankaj, and we kind of have some rough dates lined up for us. And there's mainly like 2 ways we can get through this. everyone wants to be able to have lakes constructed in the next dry season, and the timeline's kind of tight. We're planning to have the facilities plan adopted at a public hearing in February here at Gateway. Once that happens, we'll give it over to SRF, and they'll take about 2 to 3 months to review and approve that plan. So that'll be in around April time.
That's going to kill us on the dry weather season.
So the next meeting is in May. So in May, we could ask for design money. And then the next meeting would be in August. So to have construction plans ready for them to approve for construction money, we would have to have them done by June 25th, approximately like a month and a week after we get approved for design money. So there's no way we can get from design to getting approved for design to having construction plans in a month. So that would push us to the November meeting. And if we get approved for construction funds in November, we don't really have much time to get many lakes done. We might be able to get 1 or 2 done.
At best.
Yeah, at best, if everything goes really well.
So we have 7 ponds that will get done this year that were deferred from last year.
Correct.
These are how many phase 3 ponds? Or 8?
8 of them. Yeah.
8 of them
Yeah.
that will go now to 2024 in all likelihood.
Those 8 will be finished in 23. They'll be finished this dry season.
So
No, I'm talking about the ones on the facility plan.
Oh, those ones?
Those 8 won't go until 2024 unless you might get November or December.
Or,
go ahead.
So so that's the timeline if you guys want to go through our SRF for financing of the design money. If you wanted to pull like 6 of the lakes out and self-finance those, we can expedite surveying and design and permitting, get those done, and then bring that to the August meeting for construction funds.
What's the cost differential?
Well, where would that funding come from?
Our bond.
Just the-
It could come from the bond, which we'll need to know before the December 1st meeting, or it could come out of a capital project. The point repairs, there's $100,000 in the point repairs fiscal year. That would go towards the $5 million loan, which in essence would go towards the bond. But we could wiggle some money around and make it happen.
I'd like to see what the cost differential is, like much what you did on the taxable, non-taxable on the park. I'd like to see that same thing.
Okay. I have an estimated cost on surveying through permitting. It's about $106,000.
Yeah, well, the capital is not what bothers me. It's the
Okay.
interest rate.
Yeah.
What's the interest rate going to be? 2% for SRF versus 4,
So
5, 6?
Right.
What this boils down to is missing 1 year of construction. And that would be next fiscal year if we continued pursuant SRF funding for design and construction dollars. Now, the majority of the construction funding, the state's fiscal year starts July 1st, and the first RFI is the big chunk,
It's August.
August.
Yes.
So
Most of the money is gone in August.
So ideally, we would try to get construction funding available for the next phase 3 set of ponds at that RFI, but that would require us fronting the funding for design.
Okay, what's the estimated construction cost, total project cost of the 7 that we didn't do and we lost? I was recalling that, what, 3.5, 4 million?
The 7 that we didn't do that we lost.
The
The
ones
ones
that
that we're doing right now.
The ones we're doing right
Tower.
now.
I think Laura's trying to pull it up.
Then the next 8 that's in the facility plan, what's the total of it?
Right.
How much are those 8 ponds? Are they similar to that, or are they a lot more expensive?
We use those numbers and inflated them. So they're probably 10 to 15% higher.
Met Tower's portion of the construction cost for this round that we're doing now is 3.1.
Okay, that's what I thought. And the facility plan is, I thought it was like 5 or 6 million because it had a couple of biggies in there.
Mhm.
So
Okay, so
the point would be to just pull out the next phase of these ponds. That way we don't miss a year and self-fund the design and permitting, which is projected to be about $106,000. And then the rest of that facilities plan to go and ask SRF for the design and permitting of the rest of the
will they
phases.
let you do it?
Yeah.
They'll let you do that?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can. Yeah, I spoke to Pankaj, and you can pay for the design. You don't have to take the loan for the design.
Still got to meet all their requirements, but you pay for it,
Yeah, so
which is a time issue.
And for sake of argument, what is at risk if we push out a year?
time.
'Cause
Time.
That's
these
it.
are,
That's the only thing.
I think we're at the level now with these ponds.
But
They're not
we're still,
classified as
we're still in,
critical.
we're still in the red.
We're still in the,
We're still in the red. So it's, the issue is money, is what the bids, how much is going to inflate
Yeah.
over that period. That's what's scary.
Well, and you have the inflation rates with interest and things like that, that you're now looking at phase 3 could be 2 years out for construction compared to this upcoming.
well, and I think what we don't know is where we'll be in 2024 as far as fuel prices and other
Inflation and all
materials.
that other stuff. Yeah.
So
So, I mean,
the point in Stephen bringing this up is there are decisions being made, the bond is proceeding, the timing of SRF and the facilities plan. If this board says to staff and to the engineer that we don't want to lose a year, okay, here are the alternatives. If the intent is to continue, which with SRF funds, regardless if we lose a year or not, we'll continue down that path. But time is of the essence because there are only 4 meetings in a calendar year that SRF meets, and we have to meet. We're trying to time those
Fall in
out.
one of those.
Yes.
Well, that's why I want to make sure we got this phasing. We have 7 ponds that we're going to be doing in combination 22, 23. That's the 7 that we lost a
Yes.
year on.
Yes.
Then if we do on the facility plan, which is, I think we call that phase 3, there were 8 ponds that right now would go into 2024. So I don't see that we lose a year.
Well, you wouldn't be able to construct in the dry season of 24.
The early dry season.
Yeah, you'd be going out in like November, December of 24.
For bid.
Yeah, you would lose. Yeah.
A couple months, which could mean 1 to 4 ponds.
Gotcha.
Or
Okay.
lakes.
but so if I'm understanding that correctly, but if we delayed, we could have construction. If we push, we could have early construction in 2024
You could have regular
and then,
springtime construction in 24.
Right.
so the lapse of time or the potential loss of time by, let's say, delaying, staying on the same path would be probably roughly more around 6 months.
Well, just like what we're seeing right now, your opportunity for construction in November, December ain't going to happen. Our water levels are not dropping. I mean, they are not dropping.
They can
I think the
they
biggest-
can lower.
One second. I think the biggest decision here is, do we shift funding focus?
Well, I think the idea of it gives you the alternative to do something differently by self-funding the
Right.
design, which is incremental anyway. So I don't see that that's a risk.
So so do we have the ability to ask for them to drop? Because if the water level is too high, we have the ability because we are going to
Yes.
construction to lower.
That's what they're planning to do on these lakes right now. They're going to plug and pump down the lakes, the smaller
That
ones.
isn't free.
They will not do that on Lake 58. It's
Oh, it's
massive,
too
but
big.
on the smaller ponds, it's not a problem. They've done it in the past.
And just for clarity, that item that we have in the budget, that 100,000, what is it earmarked for specifically?
Point bank
And we
repairs.
got problems on that.
So
too.
that's my point. We eat into that,
Yeah.
Well,
and that puts us potentially in
I
arrears
don't wanna
for
do that.
other work.
I would have to agree, given that there's Gateway, there are a few that need it. And then talking to that, I don't recall us getting a revised prioritization list from the points of repair, because I know the board made an adjustment at the last time that we talked about it. But I don't remember receiving a revised version
We asked for
of
that
that we
last
asked
meeting.
for and we didn't get it.
Yeah.
So I know we said prioritize the residentials,
Mhm.
and now this, we actually went line by line item, and I don't have that.
I think that was
Okay.
when Keith was going to go out and check around and see just what the extent of the need for more point
Keith-
repairs are.
Keith and staff did go out and he handed me this. It is the prioritization list that was presented, and we
Red
had
mean-
some
red-
adjustments.
Red means good.
So it's pretty much the same, except he put some field notes on it.
I
So
think so.
we haven't updated it, into the table itself. So
So if we can get that updated and get it distributed to the board, I'd appreciate it.
yeah, I'm sorry. I would have brought that. I didn't know that
That's
was
okay, no
required.
problem. What's the drop dead date that we need to decide on this?
When does
If-
the bond due?
The bond will be in front of you on December 1st.
Well, the supplemental engineers report
Yes,
for the first series of bonds, yes.
yes. which again, we would have to incorporate all of that, the verbiage and stuff. At
So-
your last meeting, you said, let's push it out a series for any of the funds for the ponds, because we were going to pursue SRF funding. So we're talking about roughly $106,000.
So again, we have to, this decision has to be made on direction prior to December 1st.
If you want to include it as part of the bond process in the first series, yes.
What do we have budgeted for point repairs?
100,000. And again, you could choose,
More than that.
you could choose to move funding around. We can reprioritize some other items,
I thought
or
we-
you can pull from reserves.
I thought we bumped that up to 200,
Are
250,000.
we really knowing right now?
What the hell was that? Lower?
And I recall, I think last from that tower, each point repair was averaging around $1,800 per repair.
Went up.
Well, and that's last year.
Okay.
Which probably more deterioration now, and then the price cost is probably higher, so we're not
All
gonna
right,
get
so
a lot.
can you take a look? I think pulling from that point repair budget line is not the most fiscal responsible thing to do. Can we look and see where else we could?
Well, if it's the
And it is
design,
pretty early in the budget.
And I'd like to see
season
that
for us to
list
be
as to
looking
how many lineal feet of point repairs we've got in how many ponds.
Yeah.
Because there are ponds that have all of a sudden just gotten really, really bad that need to be addressed. And if he's got that, that would be handy to know how many lineal feet there is.
It's, the top 6, well, the total linear feet of the top 6 lakes was 12,000 linear feet.
Of point repairs?
Not point repairs, that was the total.
I'm talking
Yeah.
point repairs. Because that cost per foot, we can't do it that El Cheapo way. That didn't work.
Areas that require point repairs are on some of these lakes as well.
Can we get a,
Okay.
can we get an estimate of what that linear foot is on that point repair? Yeah, for
Yeah,
total, in totality.
I'm not so worried about the lakes that are on our listing that we had previously, because that's how they got ranked,
Right,
red, green, or yellow.
yeah.
I'm worried about ponds that were down the way that were predominantly green and yellow that have got point repairs that we're not normally going to get through for another 5-6 years.
okay, I don't want us to get bogged down on where the pot of where this $106,000 is coming from. Laura has a very good point.
We did budget $100,000 for fiscal '23 for the point bank repairs, but I know that we did not use the budget of 250,000. We didn't
That's
use
the
all of that
number I
from
had in
22,
mind.
but so whatever's left over, and I would have to verify that with Sonia and Steven, we would be able to pull that carry forward into 23, and we could use those dollars to fund it.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, yeah.
So we were hoping for some guidance from the board on if it is the desire to self-fund the design and permitting of the phase 3 of our facilities plan in order to get ahead of construction, or if you'd like us to, again, just pursue everything through SRF.
I think if there's carryover,
That's a time issue that doesn't cost us that much money. I'd say do it.
so I think if
Saves
there's
time.
carryover and we don't have to touch the existing budget, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Because they would just be absorbed into this year's.
Okay, we'll confirm the numbers before the December 1st meeting and come back with the game plan moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Steve, do you have more on your?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I'll skip on down to development updates.
Okay, before you leave the task authorization sheet. Oh, no, you're still on the same sheet. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. Arborwood Phase 3, we're in turnover. North Haven, we're trying to finalize the plan review on that. There's a sticking point with us and the engineer and developer on aerator. I don't know if we want to talk about that now. We can
What
bring
are
it.
we Wait.
This is
Why-
the,
We didn't do that on anybody else. Why would we be doing that on them? All of those have been the responsibility of the developer, the original developer. That would have been WCI or Lennar, whoever.
so
I don't see why we would.
for the
single
rest of
out
the
one
board, just in
developer.
case they're not familiar with what's going on, we're reviewing a set of plans for North Haven, which is up by Hidden Lakes, I believe, right?
Yep.
And they're on an existing lake. The lake is part of their project. They're planning to deed that lake to Gateway. It was never deeded to Gateway, but I imagine that we've been operating and maintaining the lake, correct, Tony?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, we are.
So they're making minor modifications to the lake. They're changing that that ditch flowway from Stony Brook. They're turning that into a culverted system, and they're regrading the lake bank and obviously removing all the vegetation on it. Our interpretation staff,
Also, I think, aren't they redirecting some drainage from the city of Fort Myers?
Yeah. right,
That's another,
That's gotta be.
they're making development on their uplands.
right,
And,
they're modifying the
Yeah.
drainage system of the lake, even though it's minimal, arguably.
right.
But
Our
that-
interpretation of the permit criteria manual is that they would be required to add aeration, to the lake per the PCM.
Now-
And I concur with that.
And we did have I did have an email this afternoon from the developer requesting that if although they don't agree that with the staff interpretation, that they would be willing to put the aerators, basically if they got their permit ASAP.
A majority of the flow on that pond is upstream is Stony Brook.
I agree with that.
It's
Yeah.
Stony Brook.
Yep. And it also, it's on the flowway essentially. So all Basin 5 comes
It's
into
that
that.
4B or whatever we
Right.
called it deal. That's why I had a real problem. If this would have been just a pond sitting out there that had 2 acres, half of it was theirs, half of it was ours, that'd be one thing. But this was a flowway pond. I think that was our responsibility since day one to have aerated that.
Yeah, I don't think it was required in the PCM back in the day or part of the Lee County development requirements at the time when it was built. So
I think I think we have resolved the issues with the developer. If they are unresolved, it will come back in front of this board for further discussion and to weigh in and make the final call. But I believe as of earlier this afternoon, we have resolved the issues with North Haven.
What's the rough ballpark dollar value of the adding aeration to that pond?
Keith,
It'll be about 7,000 to 10,000.
come to a mic.
Where are they getting the electrical?
They will be responsible for it.
For us to do it, it would be about 7,000 to 10,000 plus electrical hookup, service connection, $5,000.
That's why I was gonna say 5,000. So
And then we're on the electric bill for
10,000-15,000 bucks all in.
plus the electrical cost every month.
Yeah.
All right, so, and Tony, you're in alignment with,
Yeah, my opinion is, when we made the revisions to the permit criteria manual, we talked about development and redevelopment, that the aerators are required on a go-forward basis, yes.
Okay. thank you. What else, Steve?
I'll leave it at that. Oh no, Daniel's Parkway Apartments. It says Preserve here. I don't think that's what they're calling it. I wanted to bring up a point Kenny mentioned. We should probably bring it to the board. They're currently proposing to get their irrigation water from their on-site lakes. They're in the CDD boundaries.
Who?
The developer is, I don't know who it is. It's not Lennar.
Is this the Worthington?
It's the Worthington parcel, but it's called Daniel's Parkway Apartments now.
And
It's
they're planning on getting their what?
their irrigation water from the on-site lakes.
That's what I thought I heard you say.
Yeah.
So
That's not our.
we are very preliminarily.
In the early stages.
Thank
Yeah.
you. We had a pre-app meeting. It was very rough. They did a submittal. We did a full review and there are lots of comments, but we wanted this comment was a big sticking point and we just wanted to bring it to your attention that this is what they're proposing right now. This is may be a future item that the board would have to consider, but they have a long way before they get to their final permit.
The only other one in Olive Gateway that got away with that, the special use, was the Country Club. We open a can of worms if we allow them on that exception. That's
I agree.
absurd. That's making a big mistake.
I think it was more for informational purposes and just to know that we're dealing with this
And I
from the
think
staff.
board direction is, that's not gonna
As
fly.
far as I'm concerned, it's not gonna fly.
Okay.
Okay. Just one quick question. Can you just provide some clarity for me in the chart, the difference between scheduled completion date and anticipated completion date?
Yeah. So at the last meeting, I had prepared this without
You
the
really wanna
anticipated.
know the answer?
It just had the schedule.
Some areas it makes sense, and others it doesn't, because one is,
So the scheduled completion date was based on the task authorization. The anticipated is the reality.
so maybe let's change it further. Because you got authorization date, to me, that's the task authorization.
That's when we received authorization for the
Right.
work.
And then there should be a target completed date. And then the way I'd like to see it is if that target completion date changes, you just cross through that
Okay.
date and move forward, and then you use that far right column as your notes.
Okay.
You know, because it's just confusing. Because what we want to do is we want to keep track of when was the task approved,
Right.
what was the target completion date, and if that target completion date moves, there should be some corresponding, you know, notes to that. Because I
Right.
think once it's completed, it falls off this,
Right.
right? You know,
It does.
so
I think that this accomplishes that, but I agree it can be confusing. So I'll
we're getting there. It's
clean
only
that
taken
up.
a couple of years for us to get this thing where we want it.
I just need to send you a draft and you can sign off on it.
And so questions for Stephen?
Yeah, I want to go back to it, even though I know that it's been pulled, but the issue with, was reading all the stuff we had that we were going to do with the roundabout.
Yeah.
That 1.1 million, I believe, was the number.
Yeah, just
That's
about.
our share. Is that inclusive of the 16-inch runaround? Or is that in addition to?
I think that's in addition, is it not?
No, I can't figure out why it would be that big.
I'd have to
That
go.
16-inch runaround, the diversion pipe was a huge number. I forget what we were in that, what, 550,000, something like that?
Because I think that was our,
That was
We
ours.
initiated
That was
that,
ours.
right?
That was
Yeah.
ours. But we did it,
the bypass.
The bypass, so
Yeah,
we
force
did,
main
we were almost $800,000 in that project. total.
800,000.
Yes.
So is
This
that
is a new
800 a part
number.
of this 1.1? And if not, what are we doing that's 1.1 million if that was 800? I can't figure that out at all. I mean, the only thing that we're dealing with, it would be the 16-inch and the 12-inch lines that are in that. We're looking at $400 or $500 a foot.
Maybe you can have a call with Fred after or Steven and talk through some of that. But the good news is the county's rebidding it. Hopefully it's in our favor, but we'll see.
The utility quotes that came in were really close. I mean, it was
Yes.
like,
10% or something like
it
that.
was like under 100 grand, I think. They were very
Yeah,
tight.
they were. Well, it was
I'm
this,
just trying to figure out what
Same
is the
contract.
work effort that generates that, because I figured that we were about 1.5 to 1.6 million all in as our share.
Yeah.
We aren't even close to that. We're going to pump 2 million easy unless these bids are
Would Kenny know?
lower.
Kenny, can you pop in for a second? You should have never popped your head in.
You look
my
like
friend.
Casper out there.
The 1.1 in the roundabout project, does that include the 800 for the force main?
No,
So
it does
that's,
not.
so that is in addition.
What is it? What is the work that necessitates another 1.1 million? It's just the 16 and the 12, isn't it?
Oh, you have multiples. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 crossings still encased, and the water, the irrigation, and the sewer force main.
I knew that. Yeah.
Will be all
I'll get
This
with
one's much
somebody,
more
get the-
complex than the
Okay.
last
It's
two.
just that the lineal footage of pipe, that price is outlandish.
well, and I want to also bring to your attention that from what I've been able to go back and look at, it doesn't appear that we've had this much amount budgeted for the last 2 years for this. So you will be required to take this out of the enterprise reserves.
In English, we're short.
Yes.
That's what I
This
thought.
was
That's
not
why I was
budgeted.
getting to it, because I remember it somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5, maybe all in.
Yep.
We're not close to that.
No. So just when this does come back, you will be required to take some money out of reserves, out of the enterprise fund.
Do what?
Fountains included.
We don't pay anything on the fountain. We don't pay anything on
We're
the
not
fountain.
supposed to, no.
We only accept the liability of
The
operation and
county's
maintenance of the fountain.
We have irrigation lines.
You're talking about the prep to be able to run
Yeah.
it. Oh, that's minimal. That's nothing. Okay,
Anything else for Steve?
that's it.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Steve.
All right, I believe the next item is the admin building. I'll just start that off here if you don't mind. When we got this task authorization to do the preliminary design, we had brought a task authorization for preliminary design all the way through construction at the old site over by Fairway Lakes. But at the time of that meeting, it was determined that we were going to move the site to the Commons Park. So working up to that, we had laid out a 5,000 square foot shell of a building on that site to fit it. We didn't lay out any rooms or anything in that. And then you guys approved the tasks 1 through 3 to do the preliminary design of the floor plan. And that is what Eric Fye's been working on. He's the project manager for this. And we also have Steve Weiss, who's the architect on the line for any questions. So I'll let Eric come up and answer any questions that you have for that.
So go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a few observations. Although some of this was very difficult for my old eyes. I've done a number of these in my former life. And I think, first of all, the boardroom should be near the entrance. There's no reason to have civilians running back and forth through the building. Secondly, there should be a room for illness. People who are either here temporarily or permanently who happen to get ill someplace where they can lay down.
Wellness room, yeah.
And also a place for employees who are working long hours to recuperate somewhat. Thirdly, there should be a room for children who are left at the pool, or even adults who are left at the pool during a storm. We're going to be so close to the pool, it would make, to me, a huge amount of sense to have a safe room for children if they're left, and or anybody who needs refuge from an electrical storm. Finally, as I looked through the overhead parking for employees, I think it's a great idea, but if you're going to do it, you ought to have it close to the building. For crying out loud, you're going to make people run through the rain to get from their
Bill, I don't
covered parking to.
I don't think that's the correct drawing, Bill.
Pardon?
From what I understand, this is not the correct drawing.
This is not the what?
Correct drawing. This one's been done with another one. Somehow this one got in by mistake. There is another drawing that shows the parking right behind the building.
That's correct. Good afternoon. This was a kind of the semi-final site plan before we laid it out on the property. There's another figure. It's called figure 02.
Well, how about letting
there you go.
There you go.
Okay, all right.
This was the final version.
That's what I thought.
Did you have that?
Yeah, that was in the board book.
I guess it's in the book.
Wasn't on my board book.
I don't recall it.
It's
And,
page
I didn't print it this time.
69.
That's out of the board book.
Let me make some copies of this.
Pass it down.
Oh,
Right, he's got a copy.
Okay.
No. Well, this, you'll pardon my saying it, but this thing is so small and so difficult to
yeah.
It was hard to
read that I just went by and went back to this one that had some chance of understanding what it was.
To be honest, I did not look at this. I looked at the one that you sent me, which was the original draft, and which is not on the board book, and then the one that's on the board book. I did not look at this one. I thought they were the same, to be honest.
It's the same building, some site modifications. The changes that here from the other version are the covered parking are next to the building in the back. And then there is a future expansion that was flip-flopped essentially from one side of the building to the other. Also some access modifications in the back of the maintenance room. Once we looked at how it fit on the property, there wasn't space for some of the improvements shown in that initial draft.
So to Bill's point, and again, I'm not a designer, but it might make sense to, I think to Bill's point, I think direct access from the public to the boardroom. I don't know if it's even possible to take those rooms before the board and either push them behind and maybe through a hallway or something along those lines. But
well, if you have people coming that are renting a room, I envision that that's what that walkway was for, is for them to go in and the other end of the building would be locked. They just go in and out. But now that creates a problem with restroom access, which you'd have to have, which now means they go back down through that open area, which was what you're saying, not a good idea.
So let me kind of back up a little bit and kind of explain the process of how we got to this. Typically, when you look at designing a building, you You tell what your needs are. You know, you have 6 offices, you have a boardroom, you have et cetera. This was designed as 2 wings. The left wing or the bottom wing is more of a public purpose. So you have bathrooms on that side, we have public conference rooms on that side, we have the boardroom on that side. And as you can see, on the right-hand side is more of the operational.
Yeah.
So we wanted to clearly be able to lock off the operational side from the public side in the event we have rentals of that facilities after hours. And so we will have full control of access via security system, fob system to all of these rooms and can limit it with hours and control mechanisms, et cetera. So again, the bathrooms, and when we were going through this, I think we originally only had maybe 1 set of bathrooms, correct me if I'm wrong. And then we're like, okay, well, really, we should have 2 sets for the public. And then we would have a staff restroom over on our side. That's the thought process. We made the boardroom a little bit bigger than I think this room to try to accommodate more, have a larger occupancy. The conference rooms have, I think it's the accordion wall. Is that what we decided to put in? To where it could be either 2 separate conference rooms or 1 large conference room. The bathrooms are on that side, and then we have a media room and I think storage. So like if we needed to remove tables and chairs or bring tables and chairs in for the meeting space, we also added a small like kitchenette in the boardroom to where for coffee or water, things like that. If it were used as a public meeting space or like what we had here last night with waste management. That's really the intent of this building. We tried to, I don't want to say minimize it but this is the very basic needs that we trimmed as much as we could from a staff perspective.
But I don't want to speak for Bill, but I think the problem is the location. And now that he mentioned, I mean, I went back and forth with you and I made plenty of notes on mine, but I think it's the location while the boardroom is. It would make sense to bring it forward and start maybe what the women's and men's bathroom is and just slide everything back. So they would have walk in, go through the hallway, boardroom.
Okay.
Or just
Is
take,
that what you're saying, right? Yeah.
just take
So
the
it's not
media-
necessarily that it's less items or more items, it's just the location to avoid people going through all that. Even though we can lock it and everything else, let's limit it and just walk in boardroom.
Well, and I think there's a door that's available at the south end of, or I think it's the south end of that. I think Laura's trying to highlight it. Is that an exit door, Eric? Or it could be a.
It would be entering, the one that's entering right behind what we'll be sitting.
Yeah, I think that's
an
Steve
emergency.
Weiss can confirm, but I think that's more of an emergency.
That's what I thought.
We have to
I don't think that would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to design the heck out of this because I myself am not an architect, but if we can take your feedback from here. One of the big questions that we need answered today in consensus from the board is the location on the commons parcel, because there is next steps we have to do, bore drilling, what I don't know what.
Why do we have all of this money in parking and paving? Why not take and turn this thing 90 degrees?
I can't understand.
Why not turn this thing 90 degrees? Have the footprint such that the vision and the look of the building is from the road. That's what you want to sell. You want to make it look nice. That road there, good Lord, we've got a ton of money in blacktop to go around the back of the building. Come right along the road, parallel to the right of way, right as you come in where the park is right now. Turn off, go right down the tree line and come right into the front of this building, only to have it turned 90 degrees. That way you don't have your back facing Hampton Greens and basically the road. It's gonna look ugly looking at the back of a building. Let that look toward the park because you can do all kinds of landscaping on that. Then the other one is I went through all kinds of combinations of design deals for this type of building, and 62 lots or parking spaces is ridiculous. That's just absurd.
What's ridiculous?
Parking spaces. We don't need 62 parking spaces unless we're going to have a whole church here.
Well, Lee County,
32 is
parking spots are determined based on use, and that were dictated by Lee County's codes.
I'm not done yet. I don't know why we've got all these offices. Right now, we've got the offices over the other building and we're in a square footage. We're not going to have the utility director here. He's going to be in this building. And we don't need, there's four offices in there that we can cut out. I'm trying to get this thing back to where we got to sell this to people.
Yeah, but we also need
This
to be
is-
designing not for now, but we're designing this for the next 20 years.
Well,
And
I'll
there will be
go with that.
growth,
But
so.
I can't stand with a straight face on some of the stuff that's in here. A media room? What for? What for? We've never had one and we don't need one.
The IT equipment, if we were to truly do this setup.
Well, now, if it's an equipment room, that's a different story.
Yes.
But media room, no.
Why are we nitpicking over a couple rooms?
Money. What's the price tag on this dude now? We made a statement to the people that this was not going to be a wish list. That's what this has turned out to.
Well, I don't know if that's what we said.
If the residents see this gymnasium that's laid out on here, they're going to go through the roof. My thing is, I want to see at least 500, possibly 1,000 square feet taken out of this. Get us back down closer to that 5,000.
I think we need to build, if we're going to spend the money, why not? And this is a great example of not having forward vision in building a building. And I think we want a building that.
It's a waste, Doug.
It's
a waste.
It's.
You're not going to sell it to the public, I can tell you.
So
the people I've heard in my community, they don't trust a word that we have said.
But that's
They
the
don't
same
trust
community
anything.
that spends excessively in bocce ball in the golf course. and
300
other
people,
things.
303 people out of 1,400. That's
Okay.
not a lot of people.
So
But that's your community's.
I probably took the most amount of time looking at this. So I had reached out to Chelsea because I wanted to see how much bigger this new building is compared to what we're currently using, which we deem not
Not
enough
adequate.
space. So currently the offices, and not counting the garage here, is averaging about 4,100 square feet for this building. Plus the trailer, it's 1,400. So right there is 5,500 square feet, which we said is not big enough for all of us. So we're going from 55 to, what is the proposed net, 63. So if you look at it, it is not a huge increase on size. Is that when you look at that, we have to look at what we have and what we all agree that is not big enough for the staff. And looking at those numbers and what we actually increase, it's not that much. I did ask about the parking lot, the same questions actually I had with Laura. I talked about, with Chelsea. I asked about that. She explained that to me. I did go back and I asked, what was this price per square footage of this? And then I believe you told me 300.
300.
So I went and I literally, I had 5 different maps because I was trying to say, okay, what can we do and what can we cut? And honestly, when you cut 3 offices, which to me, I was just trying to make that easier, you're getting around 430 square foot that you're cutting it. At $300 square foot, it's not that much of a difference. And then if we cut 400, then you're back to the same size of stuff that you have here now. So while I went in with the thought, let me see what can I cut, I went back and I said, and logically, look at the numbers, and it's like there's not much to cut. And if you would cut, I think you could absolutely cut 2 offices, but the cost, it's not going to make a difference. It's going to cost us way more to add such a small piece of area later on. So that's what I have for that. I did ask about, for me, because I believe the parks, when I say the parks, the gym, the gymnasium, or whatever we decide to do, or whatever when, even if it's this board or not, I was sensitive to having that information here. I would have much more preferred that it said future, but when it put in that gymnasium there, it made me think, I don't want my residents to think that that's our plan behind their back. And I think that, but I also didn't ask to be omitted because then it would have looked worse. I understand it's a future thing, but I just wish it said future expansion, because it does put a doubt on the residents that that's the mindset. They're going to forget everything else that we did here, and they're thinking what we're building is a gymnasium. That's my 2 cents on this.
Well, the part of the point of showing that future, whatever it may be, it could be a community center, it could be a library, it could be a sheriff's substation, it could be whatever this board and or future boards decide. The point is that the design of this facility is flexible, and that there is opportunity based on this design that has been proposed for future expansion if the board ever wished to do so. From a staff perspective, having staff separated into separate buildings has been rough, and we've only been at it for 2 months.
Almost 3 months.
And the board at this board at either a meeting or two ago decided that the enterprise fund would fund 59% of the construction of this building. It only makes sense to have at least the utilities director and building in that building. Now the operational staff will stay here. The storage will stay here. This room will turn into a controlled climate storage, which is needed. So it's not like we're not making good use of what we have. And from a staff perspective, if you were to cut anything, I'd say to cut the public conference rooms. But that doesn't benefit the community as a whole.
Well, and I like what Bill was talking about, that when we're building this, it has to meet our needs today and it has to meet our needs for tomorrow, whatever that scale is. I think most importantly, it has to be a place where people want to come to work. Finding good employees and keeping them is a very difficult thing today, and it will continue to be difficult. One of the things that I would just maybe look at is we get the staff conference room. I would maybe even split that or change it so it's more of a staff lounge or a place where you could eat inside, you can relax in between shifts or whatever. I think there's a couple tweaks. I think, in my opinion, it's directionally in alignment with, and I didn't have any input on this, or this is the first time I've seen it is when it's been sent to the board. Placement, I think we should look at placement. I think it should be, if we're spending this money, it should be a center of that commons area. If there's opportunities to multi-purpose parking for the admin building and other functions of whether it's the pool or future consideration, I think we should look for opportunities there as well.
So Chelsea, jumping on that, the requirement, or maybe Eric, the requirement amount of parking spaces is not even including if we would have put the pool here, right? The 60 plus is just as for the building requirements.
No, that's just what we put together to show space. That, as Mr. Tinkle indicated, that's way more parking than you need for this building.
So then I get to conflicted answer, because I thought that's what it's required by the county. That's why we have so many. Not that I disagree or agree at this point. I thought it was required. So I was like, okay, if it's required, then that's it. If it's something that we can do 30 and expand later on.
The calculation I did was about 33 spaces. So that's for this building alone. But again, if you want to plan for the future, this was just a conceptual layout of what could be, including the gymnasium. It's a large structure to plan space for something to go there. Obviously, when you get to the site development plan phase, you want to plan for what you're going to do in the future, and we want to put roadways where they're not going to have to be torn up and moved later. So that was kind of the thought process. It's not that you need that many spaces. And this task authorization was not a site planning effort. We just did some site planning to try to conceptualize the building and where it was going to go to come up with a layout.
So this is what we need from the board today is the location, because next steps and as we move forward with design, each threshold, we will come back to the board for their review and approval. So
when you say
it would be nice to
location,
have options.
what do you mean location?
The physical location on the commons
Yeah, I don't have
parcel.
any problem with that. I just think you're wasting space big time with this layout. I'd turn the thing 90 degrees.
Have you done soil test borings?
No, that is under the current task authorization.
I'm sorry, that's what?
Geotechnical investigations are under the current task authorization. We wanted to wait to do those until you approve the building
Know where you're
location.
going.
Yes.
Isn't that kind of reverse from usual?
No.
Don't you usually do the soil test borings before you start putting the?
Before you do design, yes.
Before you do design.
This is very preliminary. What do you percent? 15, what are we at? 15%, not even?
Yeah, 10.
10.
15.
So we have a long way to go. But again, the location, and we didn't want to impede any future planning with this parcel if there were any.
What's the dollar value of this versus what we've got budgeted in our 10-year plan?
We estimate the cost of the structure you see on screen to be about
Total project cost.
I don't have a total project cost.
We're not at that stage.
No.
But usually you're gonna add 25, 28%. So what's the construction
The,
cost?
the building construction cost is probably around 2.6.
And that includes all the site work?
No.
Driveways?
No.
Guess I didn't learn anything at Purdue. I asked for the total cost, not individual pieces, total cost. What is the total construction cost estimated? Driveways, everything. You don't realize
be
how
about
much
3.5.
money this stuff costs. And we put a budgeted number that people bought. And I think we should do everything we can to stay at that number. I think there's things that you can do with this, still keep the idea, but putting in all of that road and all that parking is a waste of money, just a waste of money.
And on that note, I wanted to make the board aware as well that we didn't show, like I said, this wasn't a site plan effort. So we didn't show access to this facility, but we did have some correspondence with Lee County DOT, and they will not allow
That makes sense.
a second access on Gateway Boulevard.
That
So
makes sense.
in any case, you are going to have to run a long driveway to this facility from your existing
Yeah,
access.
and that's why I was saying, you turn this 90 degrees, go up that right-of-way line. You don't have all that road that you've got looped all the way around that site,
Sure.
and eliminate the parking. But I'm just trying to come up with, we told the people, I can't remember what the number was, but when you add in all this outside work and in the non-construction costs, we're way over what we had budgeted in that bond, way over.
Well, and I think as we progress with design and we get better engineers' opinions of probable cost, that's where you start to cut things.
Put it right here, just
But at a minimum,
people,
this
where's
is,
that? Just turn it.
this is what
Take this right here.
operationally we feel that staff needs right now.
Facing
the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, I just want to make sure we're clear. So,
Just
one of the
trying
things
to
we
cut
look at
costs.
is and I've got the satellite view. So if you're looking at this from the corner of the lot, turning it this way.
Yeah, so the front of
So
the building faces
so
Gateway Boulevard.
So technically the back of the building, but have a almost front facade
You could do it either way.
facing
Just
outward.
Can I interject a little bit here? This is Steve Weiss with Tetra Tech. I'm the architect.
Yes.
The idea was, since we could not get a secondary entrance coming off of Gateway Boulevard, we saw the entrance that you have now as the entrance. And then once you're into this area, the frontality of the building is what you're going to see. So you're never going to be able to enter this directly from Gateway and go to that front door. So by rotating the building to face Gateway, you're going to have to come off and around, and you're basically entering and seeing the back of the building. So
No, you just parallel the road to the right of way. It's real
the
easy.
side that is facing Gateway is not going to look like the back of the building. It's going to look like a building.
Take the building that's
metal
right there,
roofs, brick.
90 degrees, such the parking lot is between the building and Gateway Boulevard, and shrink it to 32 spaces, and you solve the problem, and you totally minimize the blacktop.
But then
I have issues with, I know,
okay.
really quick. So I understand we need to start looking at costs, but parking is always, seems like it's an issue. Not necessarily here, but if you have any events or if you do anything, I mean, I'd like to know how much we're going to save by, cutting some of the parking.
And I agree. And then I think I wouldn't be opposed to moving the 90-degree angle if that's a possibility. However, I wouldn't then cut it to 30 spaces, because if you need to expand that parking lot and you made the building the other way around, what are you going to expand to? Gateway Boulevard? So you couldn't. So if you're going to do it at 90 degrees, I'm totally okay with that. But then keep it the 60 spaces. Now, if we keep it the way it is and want to do 30 spaces or whatever is required and then add on later, it will be easier. And I'm okay with that. But not turning around 90 degrees and then cutting it to 30.
Is there other alternatives for parking rather than just having it asphalt? Can we do like half of it as manicured or concrete, and then maybe some overflow that's might be more cost effective, that still has a design?
I know churches are allowed to do grass parking. I don't know why a administrative building couldn't.
I mean, I wanted to look good. I don't
think
we're going to
you
spend the
wanna
money.
do that. The big thing is that you're going to have other amenities here. I think that's a common as a known. Sometime we're going to have them. You can have the parking with those. You're not going to have these people going there, parking there, and walking cattywampus to any other amenity. you're going to have the parking either in the center of the amenities or you're going to have parking for the amenity. But trying to worry about this, 32 is what the suggested design is for this layout of this type of building. I just don't see, it's a waste of money.
Okay, so then I have something else. So I'm just counting, so we have 10 employee parking spaces, right? That's what we have it for right now. But we have way more than 10 offices. So some of those employees will not be able to park on their parking spaces. They'll be using the general public parking spot. And then that will be their personal vehicles. But then we still have all the vehicles that utility uses, that staff uses, that is also going to take in, I will say, what, 9 vehicles right now total?
Well, how many people are at the other building? How many people were at
So
the other
right there,
building?
right there is very roughly 20 parking spaces. If we want to cut to 30, that's going to give 10 parking spaces to the public.
No, I'm trying to get an idea as to what we told.
No.
We were willing to spend, guys, just keep in mind, we were willing to spend $800,000 to put this same building down there at that building. This doesn't pass a smell test with the public.
13
How many people are in the building down there right now?
at Fairway Lakes.
Yes, that's our admin.
7.
I'm sorry.
7.
So why do we need all these more offices?
There, because we have, this would be 13, which would include Tim is in a closet right now at the pool. And we have our we have Public Works Director, our Utilities Director, our Stormwater Tech,
I would think they need to be here
and
in the
Austin.
office, in this office, not down there at that admin. This was exactly what we said.
Operationally, that is put a strain between staff,
Well, then,
with staff.
I hate to say it, but then what you're going to do is you just took that percentage and greatly changed it that this is more of a utility enterprise expense than it is for an admin.
That's what you did at the last meeting.
Not when you take and add all these other people. I wasn't counting those people. I wasn't counting having.
It's still 59%, which is the calculation that is used
Which
now.
makes sense because we're basically a utility company.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but my point is your staff is here. Having the 2 bosses
How
over
many
there
people
makes
do
no
you have?
sense whatsoever to me.
I
None.
think it's like this.
Who's going to run the show here?
I understand your concern. One thing to keep in mind though is that the utility staff is not in this building during the day. They're out in the field. So the admin staff and the director level and like Austin, those people are the people who would have offices are the ones who are in the building during the day. The utilities team themselves, while their parts would be here and their vehicles would be here, they are not here during the day.
Put up the blow up of that building on that right wing, west wing, east wing. Put that one up. Yeah, I must have misread this because I thought I saw 2 public works and 2 utility, and we got 1 public works and 1 utility.
yeah, it would be nice if you're going to update the drawing to update it so it mirrored
Blow that up, please.
the original drawing because this is,
Yeah.
you know, because that was called out and had all the spaces called out.
It's blurry. Okay.
Okay, now what are those buildings? What are those offices there?
You want me to go one by one?
Yeah, who's going to be in all these?
Okay, Public Works Office 1 would be our Public Works Director.
Okay.
Public Work Office 2 would be L. Our Parks and Rec Office would be Tim, who's our Parks and Rec Manager, who's currently in a closet. We have Georgia, Laura, Randy, and myself, and then Austin would be the other 5 for admin. We have Utility Office 1, 2, and 3, which would be Vicky, Leslie, and Kenny, and then your front desk receptionist would be. So we've literally accounted 1-to-1 for all of
Which
our
gives us
staff.
no room for expansion.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, you would be able to expense on the second public conference room because you could divide that later on and just utilize one.
I've
but
never seen
it's tight.
building something like this with no percentage of expansion capability.
I tried to keep in mind
As you
the
take off the 2 new buildings, you
consciousness.
still have the expansion because I totally disagree with staff or directors being in that building there when the workers are here.
So-
But
Totally
they're not here during the day, but that's the whole point.
Doesn't-
And
doesn't make
having
any difference.
all the department heads together.
Ed, let
Which
me
is where
ask you
the-
this question.
What's the supervision?
You were talking about the Public Works Office 1 and 2. That's what you don't agree being in there at that location?
I don't see the need, the utility people, the people that we said originally that went to the other building, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Okay, so
And
then you're
providing
just,
for an office for 1 or 2 growth, I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. But I think you got 4 offices in there that are absolutely not necessary.
okay, tell me exactly what office, because right now, because if
The 4 in ones, just take them off.
Parks and Rec, so you want him to stay in the closet in the pool?
Parks and Rec doesn't need to be in an office like this. Let them stay in this building.
But take them away from the
What?
park area? I think you're being nitpicky here.
I'm
normally
But
you're-
regardless,
I think-
not
You-
going to
you've
say
been
anything.
behind
I'm not going to say anything more.
no,
You just wait till the public hears my nitpicking.
Well, that's
But-
fine.
but-
We
but
can
I'm-
have that debate
Ed,
with the
I
public,
do-
but
I-
the public doesn't work in this building. They don't know the day-to-day operations. Now, they
It's-
are having to fund it, but if it
Doug-
comes to cost,
Doug, it's
there's
what we
other- Excuse me,
told
let me
the
finish.
public.
we told the public we need an administrative building because we've outgrown it.
Told them we needed a 5,000 square foot building and we were going to spend $800,000 to put a 5,000 square foot building that you're now saying was a waste.
it was
That's
a
exactly what you're saying.
but I think we said it was approximately that. But even that, Ed, I want to give you what you're saying. So if you want to remove Public Works Office 1 and 2, that's I did the math earlier. So that's because that's kind of what I went. So we're looking at 306 square foot. Okay.
And take EOC.
Uh.
I don't see any need for that room at all.
Okay. So how much is EOC? What? Oh, sorry. I'm trying to touch screen over there.
I'm trying to be a little bit more Spartanistic on
Oh,
this.
okay, but I want to see the cost. You talk about cost. Let's look at the numbers. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I would agree with that.
okay, so
Let's see
you
the
so
cost
another
first.
310. So we're gonna cut 616 square feet at a cost of $300 square foot to build. That's the money you're fighting to save, and knowing that we're going to be at capacity and not having everybody together. Does that make sense? So that's at first I 100% said I was on it. What can we take? But then when I counted, and same thing with the parking lot, I was going with let's do 30. But then when I thought like we don't even have enough parking spaces for the employee, we need 13. Then plus our vehicles, it's another 7, so that's 20. So if we do a parking lot of 30, so I right on the spot changed my mind back to 60 because there is a need. When we have to think and add it up, and then there's a need. So if you wanted to cut it, you would have cut those 2 items, and the amount of dollars that you cut are very insignificant. If you have to add this later on, we'll be paying way a lot more. That's my last comment regarding this. For today.
Let's see. I want to see the cost estimate. See what this cost estimate is.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one
sir.
final comment. Having buildings designed by a lay committee is kind of like building a camel. And I hate to tell you this, but in a previous life, I was involved in the building and construction of like 40 buildings. And never, ever did we say, oh, we built it too large. But almost always we said, oh, I wish we had built it a little bit larger.
Yeah. So I think one of the key drivers is cost, and I think we would all agree that we need to be physically responsible with this building. And I don't think we should be nitpicking on some of the design. I think staff is the one that's going to be in this building. So I don't want to nitpick over number of offices. I do think we should control cost. So we set a cost and then have staff work within those parameters. I mean, we can sit here and argue bathrooms on one side, whatever. I think that should be left up to the professionals to figure out where the bathroom should go, what's the best pathway for traffic and access. We're not in that building, except probably 2 times a month, and maybe if we pop in. Chelsea, what do you need from us today?
I need final location on the Commons site, because moving forward, next steps are them to go do the testing and then them to continue moving forward, hopefully get to 30% design and bring that back to you. Understanding too, time is of the essence. We signed a 2-year contract for the Fairway Lakes Office Park office with 2 1-year renewals. So we
need to get moving on it. Steve, I have a question for you you're the lead design on this, the architect?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So when selecting this spot, what other site considerations did you make? What were those constraints, and why did you land on this location? Knowing, keep in mind, that this could or could not be a park in the future or a multi-purpose site.
Yeah, we had a master plan done by another firm that, and that corner of the site was fairly vacant of anything. It was mostly just open lawn. So we thought that that would be kind of the least impact on potentially that future plan by placing it there. It also allowed us enough room to expand along Gateway if we needed to, or in that direction, so that we could look 10, 15 years down the road. If you need more room, you'd have it, rather than, putting it right up here next to the pool where we might be hemmed in and make it much more difficult to add to in the future. The way this is designed, it's basically lengths of a sausage. If you need another 10 or 12 offices, you just plug right into the end and go. You don't have to interrupt daily operations. They can build a whole damn building and just cut a hole when they need to once it's done. So
And,
that was the logic.
yeah, and if you had not had any preliminary design from any other firms, do you think this is the location that you would have landed on? Or would there have been maybe possibly another location that you would have considered?
Um, well, I mean, if you're going to try and stick with some of that master plan that was done earlier, this probably is the least invasive into how that would affect that plan, because that corner was fairly vacant. I think we're encroaching on what was going to be a paddleball court or a pickleball court, and that was about it.
Okay. Yeah, and I
It
don't
also,
disagree that
it,
looking at
I'll also say about, I'm sorry, about the parking. I showed this parking could be 60 spaces if you needed it eventually, but it can also be 30 initially. I mean, I'm just showing 10 years down the road, if there's future expansion, you've got room to just grow that parking lot right along that same axis and accommodate whatever you need. So that was part of the logic, was pushing that building over into that corner to allow room for future expansion on whatever it is you need.
Yeah, I don't think
So
there's any-
anyway,
yeah.
that's the place.
And
to
I
put it.
think, we did spend money for a plan with the direction that we, at the time, the board was that we would want to put something on that property. What will end up there 20 years from now, I have no idea. But I mean, if nothing else, it would be at least manicured open space, because it's wasted property today. It doesn't have to be necessarily a park or have playgrounds or whatever. But so I think if we're going to spend money, which is what we've done in the past, spend money and we don't ever do it, we disagree and we go into correction, then we spend that money, same money again in 5 years. So I think we should use some master plan as at least a baseline, regardless of what the end product looks like. If, Ed, if the recommendation is that is the site where it is today, that it makes most sense from a design perspective with future possible considerations, would you have any problem with it staying where it is?
I have no problem with it in that corner. I'm just saying that, to me, I don't think you want to be coming down Gateway Boulevard looking into the back side of the building. I just think it's bad architecturally. Doesn't look good. And it is a,
Mr. Chairman, the administration is only asking for us to approve, confirm, so they can go ahead on this site, nothing else. And I think that
but we
if
can't
that's what
go,
they need, then I think I'm ready to make a motion to confirm that we want to go ahead with this site.
I don't think I'm discussing the site, Bill. I'm talking about the layout on
I
the
know
site.
you are, but they don't need that now.
Well, I thought that's what we're trying to rush,
So
is to
why,
be able to
Chelsea?
get the soils.
We need to know if this is the area, and I mean, do you need to know more for the borings?
Ideally, you'd want to know the
Where you gonna put
orientation
it?
of the building
Yeah,
so that we can
yeah,
move forward
that's
with the
the way you do
soil.
it.
Is it
There's going to be 5 or 10 iterations before we start construction. But all we need right now, you said, is to confirm that we want the building on this site.
well, one question is, how much visibility would the back of the admin site even have to the road?
That
You
was
have-
something we discussed. You could very easily do a landscape buffer there. And so you would see the roofs of the buildings, peeking over the
But not the
trees.
front. You wouldn't see the front facade, correct?
Yeah, and that's not the back of the building. Essentially, that is a side of the building that faces Gateway. So it's not going to look like, it's a dumpster back there or anything. It has
I get it.
frontality to that street.
I think Ed's point was, if you're driving down the road, should the administrative building be a significant visual
For the community.
for the community? And I don't disagree, but then you're talking about, if you change the location, does that create other problems?
From staff, go ahead, Steve.
Are you ready for a motion for this site?
I think we all agree on the site, Bill. I think we all agree on
But
the
they need a
site.
location.
It's the location on the site that's the issue.
I mean,
No, it isn't. It's the site, is it not?
It's both.
Well-
It's both.
Yeah, you gotta know where that building's gonna go if you're gonna do soils borings.
Why don't we separate them out and get the site approved?
but I don't think we could approve the site because
And
if we
then-
change the location, it could potentially change the site.
And then you can change it around as we go forward.
Does anybody else have an issue with the location?
I do not, but I would not be opposed to changing if, as Ed wanted, the 90-degree, because to me, either or.
Can you just take and do a rotation and put this on see what you got, and putting a site plan out there?
So how about this?
Turn it so that we have an option of what an alternative looks like. It may be something that we don't like, but at this point in time, I think there are other options that we could do that would be more cost effective.
Yeah, I can do that. And, I agree. I was struggling with it because I like the idea of frontality to Gateway. But the fact is, we're never going to be able to enter off of Gateway to the front of the building.
I
So
knew
that's
that.
that's when we said, well, the frontality is once you get into the site, then you see the front and you know where to go.
Steve, let me ask you this. If you shift it 90 degrees, so you're not left with underutilized space, is it possible? Because I would imagine if you turn it, you might want to take your wings, and instead of having them at a 45 or whatever, they might end up being more like maybe like a 30 degree.
Right.
I think you can do it as you did, as you've done it. Just put the parking on the backside. Just put the
Well,
parking on the
You can
backside.
split it. You could put employee parking in the back. potentially.
And as we
So-
discussed earlier, the parking lot's oversized for this building, so that western portion of the lot, if you rotate it 90 degrees to avoid encroaching into Gateway, you just remove or shave that off, and you're left with approximately the number of spaces you need in that right bay.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying, like where you have the employee parking. If you shift it, instead of having dead space back there, you can actually add your employee parking on that side.
We were also trying to keep in mind that that's an entrance for Hampton.
And I was going to mention that because this reminds me of what the Sony building. It's not a huge, you're on Gateway Boulevard, and if we turn this, so you won't see the back of the building, all you're going to see is parking lots, which looks like what the Sony building is. If you're on Gateway Boulevard and you look at the Sony building, the building is
I don't
far
want to see the
setback.
parking lot.
And
Yeah.
so actually, I think this is probably better because you're exchanging a back of the building that you can have windows and you can have landscaping. You have a 50 feet setback there that you can make it pretty, but you cannot make a parking lot pretty.
I'm not.
So I
don't want to kick
Does that make sense?
I don't.
People,
If someone wants to make a motion to approve it as is today, I'm not.
Your problem is that your mechanical, your structural, all of your waste disposal, everything is going to be looking right straight back into Hampton Park. Every bit of it.
Well, we can
That's the
cover
guard gate, though.
that with
It's their guard gate.
with landscaping.
Just my thoughts.
There's a row of oak trees along Gateway Boulevard that also gives.
If they survive.
Now you want to talk about making a community map.
So I think the site will be as is, and then I guess we'll move forward. I do believe that Bill's feedback regarding the boardroom is something that I absolutely think it makes sense. So if we could do that, I don't know if the board is in line with it, but I have to agree with that.
Look,
and I know you had two other rooms that you believe that it's in need, and what, refresh my memory.
It was a wellness room.
Well, it's a wellness room. If somebody here is feeling ill, someplace they can go and lay down. And secondly, and obviously more important, if we have employees that have to work
The 24-hour on call.
work many hours to take care of the next hurricane, a place for them to go and relax and lay down and sleep for a while.
I almost think like staff conference room could potentially be multi-purpose, from a
And have
staff
a divide-
lounge
and have a
to a
divider.
wellness. I don't even know
A
if you
public
need that, but a
conference
wellness room and a staff lounge or kitchen recreation.
So we've taken your comments. We hear you. We will have the architects go back and look at the boardroom, understanding proximity, but also understanding ingress and egress
Yes.
and additional hallways that may be required if you put the boardroom up front compared to in the back. We'll understanding that you guys may want some renderings, some rough sketches, maybe at the 30% design, so you can kind of see the idea of the exterior of the building and how that may be laid out. We can work through that with Tetra Tech and see what can be provided. And then again, we're at like 15% design.
Yeah.
So we have 30, 60, 90, and that 90% is when you typically apply for your permitting. So you're going to have 3 more hacks at this at least. I don't want this to die of 10,000 cuts, but we want to keep moving and making progress on this. And, as we progress, if we see we need to start to cut things out, those are going to be decisions that we'll have to make together. So hopefully we can get your consensus on the location of this building today, and Tetra Tech can keep moving forward.
And is the consensus to keep the parking lot as 60, given
I think
that
for now.
I think so too. So we actually probably have more people coming to the Stony Brook Advisory Committee than we have for the regular board meetings. So I know it will be utilized.
Well, I think to your point, there's going to be opportunities to scale back. And to Ed's point, the dollars are going to drive a lot of this. So I don't think we're at a point where we really have to start making those hard decisions until we understand.
And any excess parking we can show as future, just so the space is planned without incurring the cost.
All right.
Okay. So do you have a motion to approve the existing site plan, existing location?
I'll make that motion.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Are you saying that layout? That's my question. I don't have any trouble with that site plan in that area, the building in that area, but I'd like to see alternatives of it turned.
We can see a whole bunch of alternatives, and we need to see some more
For point of clarity, what we're approving is that corner location and the existing layout.
I don't have a problem with that.
And we can move it around, facing whatever direction.
Before you vote, if I could just get clarification, Bill mentioned the rooms we just discussed, the wellness room that's not in here now. We could use some of that existing space. You also mentioned sheltering, and the idea of moving the boardroom I don't think is feasible, but we could add an entrance, like a secondary entrance to
add an entrance, flip-flop those 2 offices or media, put the bathrooms next to the room, and then have an entrance there where you can cut it off from the rest of the building.
Understood.
Yeah, instead of having, are you allowed to have your emergency access, let's say, in between, let's say it'd be boardroom, bathroom, somewhere there, instead of having it at the very back of the building? Is there any consideration of that?
Yeah, it comes down to travel distance. Sometimes that boardroom, though, you're going to have a secondary means of egress no matter what, because it's such a big room. Code is going to require two ways to get out of it. So there could be a separate entrance on the side facing the parking lot that is dedicated just to that wing.
I think that you should look at that and play around with that that board wing. I like the structure. I think just maybe playing around with it. The bathrooms and the public conference rooms, maybe putting an additional entry point somewhere on that side.
All right,
So yes, I've got a motion, a second. Discussion is no further discussion. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay.
So as part of that discussion, we need the task authorization to be approved, so that way Tetra Tech can continue moving forward with the design.
So move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 11B, drainage project in Pelican Preserve, years 7 and 8.
Yes, we have Mr. Doug Zanter here to present this item. This is an item from the Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee, and it's in front of you due to the dollar threshold.
Okay, my name's Doug Zanter. I'm now, as of this morning, the chair of the Pelican Preserve Pond Subcommittee. We had our first meeting this morning, and Jim Latham was vice chair. We had 19 people in attendance.
19?
Yes. Beyond the board, we had the rest were volunteers for the ponds group that have different observation assignments. We got together. What is presented to you right now is something that in October PPAC recommended that we go forward year 7 of the drainage project. For you that do not know, this drainage project started planning 8 years ago. After 3 years where we had pond bank restoration with Armor Max, you all remember Armor Max? I know, Ed, you know how expensive that was. We put this project in place to circumvent bank erosion in the future. And now we're in year 7 of that. We've not had any money to spend on bank restoration since we put the project in place. Every home on a pond, we put the back gutters, we put the drainage into the pond underneath the ground, into the pond to keep erosion from the sway. This is the complete year 7. It's in Prado, and it's 276. That's the number, the exact number on there. Yeah, 276, 575. We moved a little bit, about 19,000 money around. It's in budget. It's a part of the Pelican Preserve Ponds Group approved budget except for 19K.
Yeah, there was $20,000 of carry forward that we used that was left over from the ponds budget from fiscal 22 to cover the expense that was over the fiscal 23 budget. And PPAC voted to do that, to use that carry forward to cover it.
And the other thing is next year, there's around 200,000 to complete 2 ponds. This is 3 ponds on this proposal, 3 different ponds. Next year, we have 2 ponds and we're done. Every pond in Pelican Preserve will have the drainage into the pond. And the second, next year, it will complete Prado Pistoia, which is one of our largest HOAs. Any comments, questions? I ask for your approval to proceed with the recommendation of PPAC.
Motion to approve.
And I'll second that motion.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you,
coming,
Doug.
Doug.
Okay, next item is 11C, Fun Park Playground set maintenance.
Yep. So the playground at the fun park is pretty dated. Anyway, we have I think $2,000 worth of repairs and maintenance that need to be done there. And I don't believe that includes the labor part of the repair. But we wanted to just get your direction if you'd like us to make those repairs and continue to invest money into this dated playground, or if you'd like for us to remove it and potentially look at alternative locations for a playground set. Again, I'm going to reiterate, you have around $300,000 sitting at the county for park impact, that are park impact fees. Right now, there's no restriction of who can utilize this playground at the fun park. But if you chose to put a new playground elsewhere in the district, we could potentially use those park impact fees.
Do you have any idea how many people use this?
No, sir.
Minimal.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Minimal.
I would almost like to save the money, and if later on put it in a different location. I don't think we use that particular location besides the basketball. That's all I hear that they do use, but otherwise,
It's highly restrictive which you can use it. You can't, it has to be new. Right?
New.
Yeah.
It would have, yes.
I mean, what makes the most sense, and I think we've talked about this for a long time, is where the fun park sits. It just inherently creates problems. It's behind the church, adjacent to other communities. We've had complaints over the years, parking and noise and all this kind of stuff. I think we talked about, and this is part of the conversation on building out the Commons Park area was to centralize our park system and put park and amenities in locations where it makes more sense. And I think this board has even talked about sunsetting that fun park area, trying to sell it or repurposing it, and moving all those locations to the Commons Park, at some point. I think the conversation should probably be if we should look at a very, sunsetting that fun park and repurposing those core amenities to the Commons Park. And I don't think people would be opposed to moving a playground from one location to the next. Now, there would be some cost incurred, but that would be funded through the, what's the
park impact fees.
The impact
Could
fees.
be, yeah.
It could
Could
be.
be.
It could be.
Could be, yeah. So it wouldn't cost taxpayers really any money, depending on if we stayed within, a reasonable amount. Now, new park equipment is expensive. So you'd go from spending a couple grand to do replacement to probably 50 to 75,000.
We could reach out to a couple vendors and bring back some ideas, but I know right before I left the beach, we were putting in play structures there, and typically playground equipment, it's based on age range. So you normally have a smaller set for K through second grade, and then you have
But park equipment's expensive. It's not cheap.
I'll tell you this, we installed a new one in 2018 and it was $27,000
for basic
and it was
structure.
basic.
Yeah. So, but my point is, if part of that would be, a lot of the conversation is the underutilization of the pool. Now, unless we want to build a new pool, which I don't think there's a desire for that right now, we could drive additional traffic by enhancing that area. And we're not talking about building out or spending millions of dollars in a park. What we're talking about is reallocating a portion of those amenities to a location that is designed for that. So you'd have, a park here, a park, and then the Commons Park and illuminating.
Over the years, we've had more complaints about the noise and other things,
riffraff,
if you will.
That's why you've got to keep it down to the younger kids if you're going to do anything. That's why I'd like to see is, let's do a little mini survey, find out how many people would really be interested in having a junior kiddie facilities, as opposed to, you get the high school kid back. That's why we cut the basketball goals back down to keep that riffraff out.
Well, and that's what my recommendation would be, is to sunset not recommendation, but one option would be to sunset that park and to relocate the playground facility as phase one. And then we could talk about what other amenities, whether it's basketball courts or the volleyball, down the road. I don't think the volleyball court gets really used that much at all. But again, we need to continue to have town halls and stand up the park committee and that type of stuff.
Park committee needs to be involved if we're going to be getting into that. But short term, if we would just poll the people, how many people would like to see a young kids playground at this place? That would be as far as I'd go with it. But right now, I totally agree with Flavia. You go by it, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Sunday coming out of church at about 10 o'clock, there were 2 people, and there were 2 younger kids playing basketball.
I remember we used to be honest, I don't even know what is the play equipment that's currently there and for what age group. But I remember at the pool we used to have it and we took that down. We never replaced it.
But also think too, that playground was placed within the pool structure. And it was, we spent so much money keeping it up because the kids would take water and they pour it on the slide.
And so that's what I was
so
going
it
to
has
say.
to be
I
a
think it
separate
has to be,
designated
and
area.
that's what I was going to go. I don't want us to make the same mistake. And then I guess I have a question for Tony. You first and then Tony. So when you mean sunset, meaning like get rid of the park altogether? I mean, if we could do that and sell it, couldn't we use that money for whatever we need? Because it's the only, two other properties.
We've already asked this question, and the answer was yes.
Well, if the board makes a determination that this is surplus, no longer needed for public purposes, no longer needed for district public purposes, then it could dispose of and sell the property. Yes.
What do you think about that? And just need to marinate on it?
You're going to have somebody come in complaining that I use that park all the time. And it's a few people.
Well, here's
what I agree with Doug is before we go and spend a lot of money, let's find out that somebody's going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to go spend it in and nobody uses it, that'd be the dumbest thing. we could
I
do.
agree to that, but then I guess on that survey, it's if you're not gonna use it at all, you know, it'd be a board decision, but we would just get rid of it. And knowing what we had to go through to find a location for, we know there's only that one and then possibly this park, so
That's
that
something I'd
has
like to
a
see.
lot of
that commit-
value.
That's something I'd like to have, get the committee created and talk about all these things and figure out just exactly what we do with it. But in the interim, if we can facilitate having something for the kids that people will use, I don't have any problem with that. I just have a problem going and building it and nobody comes.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I'll say, and for years, I've been kind of tagged as the advocate of amenities and wanting to build this park. And to be honest, my position is I don't think this park will ever get built. My kids are too old now to even participate. But I am looking out for from a community perspective, if we want to be and continue to be a community of choice in this area, amenities are very important for home buyers. And we've got a very diverse population, a geography of both retired, soon to be retired, single families, young professionals. I mean, we have to continue to maintain and build our community based on the demographics that live here, or the demographics that we're trying to look for. And I think that we need to be looking out for, maintain amenities. If you're gonna remove one, you need to at least replace it when there's need, and maintain, that piece. So
You guys have jumped all over the board.
yeah.
Let me try to
So
go.
here's what we have to decide is, are we willing to spend a couple thousand now to keep that playground operable? Because if it gets to a point where it's dangerous, then we have to close it down. So, which more than likely, if we don't spend this money, it's probably, if it's not there today, in the next 6 months.
If you don't
We're gonna have
spend
to
this
close it.
money today, it needs to
We're gonna
be
have to close it.
removed.
Okay,
It needs to be
so
removed.
we spend the $2,000 and at the same time we put out either a committee or survey to ask how much people will use it, and we'll know later on if we're gonna stay there and
It'll be at least
replace
a
it
year.
or
It'll be at least a year before we
So
do
I
it.
think that's what.
Yeah, if people aren't willing to come forward on a survey and say that they're interested in something, then it sure as hell isn't very valuable. They don't care.
So is the consensus because it's a pretty minor cost, to approve the funding to keep the existing park operable until we have a committee and we can spend more time doing due diligence on.
It's a long motion.
That's, if you're making a motion, I'll second it.
So here's the motion. The motion is to approve the
Staff
spending.
recommendations.
Okay.
Staff recommendation.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To approve staff
Well, no,
recommendation.
staff recommendation is to price proposals for new. I think the
Is to
alternative action is continue to make routine repairs.
Yeah, we can, if you want to, we can put a not to exceed 3,000 in
Okay.
there. You think is that an estimate
Well, that's not,
based on good faith?
that's not actually the request. So I would, because the request for the motion is to remove the playground and set for the fun park install. So I guess the motion is to make the necessary repairs as long as they don't exceed $3,000.
I'd do that.
Okay,
Does
so
that
that's
sound
the
reasonable?
motion.
I'd do
Yeah,
that.
that's the
Alright.
motion.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, so you touched on a lot of, I just want to follow up because you guys touched on a lot of items there. You mentioned about establishing the Parks and Rec Committee.
Yes.
Is that the desire of this board? And if so, we need to staff needs to draft a resolution to bring back in front of this board.
I think with that building that we talked about, even though I think we all are consent on where the building should be, it's time to get that committee established to try to figure out just how this thing is set in as far as the long term. Not saying we're going to build anything,
Okay.
but let's make sure that we plan it while it's all paper. Once we get it in blacktop and concrete, it's a little late.
Okay. So
And while we're putting committees together, we should probably do it. And you want to do those separately, or we've talked about Parks Committee, Landscape Committee.
let's
You want to do it one at a
stay
time?
with
one
this,
at a
yeah.
time,
Okay.
please.
That's
PPAC
what it
is
takes
getting
to
off
hold
the
it
ground.
down
Let
to
us
the
get
trees.
them off the
Okay,
ground
and
and their subcommittees.
So this particular committee, their only job right now would be to the fun park, to look at that
Yeah, because a
stuff.
part of that is
Nothing outside of that scope. Look to see if we even
You mean
need
the park committee?
yes.
No, I think I'd get them involved on the layout. We're talking about using up probably 6-7 acres of that site. That's
Well-
going to change
Well,
some of
but-
that
But
stuff.
when you look at, I don't know if you saw when I brought up the picture, it was only a garden and half of a tennis court
Okay, I
that
just-
changed. So I don't want them to get confused and think, oh my God, they want a committee because they're gonna build this, because
No, no,
I will
no,
be,
so-
that is absolutely no for me. So I wanted to almost say the committees, for right now, all we need is for them to work on this particular.
That's a
part
start.
right
So
here.
that
The
might be a
scope would be
start.
to,
So, does that make sense, Ed? Because I
Yeah.
don't want them coming back thinking, okay, now they have a committee, now they want feedback
Well, you-
because it's next year they're gonna
Can-
with
build this.
the part, the first scope should be to assess and evaluate the existing fun park location.
And soccer complex. And dog park.
No, first
No,
first step,
I
first,
would've said
first,
one,
hold on. First step is to assess the fun park amenities.
That ought to be a good one to start
And,
with.
and in that, come with solutions and alternatives to either reallocate or to sunset altogether or whatever. And then second phase would be,
whatever.
look at other
I agree.
amenities and,
Yeah.
and look at maybe the park plan in totality to, survey, poke holes in it, whatever.
Yeah, for the second part, what you may want to say, so we can craft the
Yes.
scope of the resolution, establishing the committee is that review other plans or amenities as directed by the board, so
Yep.
that they won't be self-creating their tasks. They will only do
Yes.
tasks as directed by the board.
We will draft that scope for your
But I don't think
review.
but I don't think you need to specify the scope in the articles of creation.
I
Well,
think
you
the
would,
resolution is helpful to do that so that they get some guidance and
We
also.
can give that once the committee is created. I mean, our intent is for that's the
They
area
might-
they need to
the
tackle.
the reason you might want to change it the other way as he's talking about is you might get some on that board or they're running for it because they think that this is an opportunity to do something that we're not planning on
Planning
them
to do it.
doing.
So, yeah, so I agree with that. I think right now for this scope, we'll say for that little park
Yes.
and any other scope in the future that the board may
As may,
direct you
as
to.
may assign you with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
But-
we may say the dog park, but we may not at all. And
We'll find out
Perhaps
how
let-
interested they are
Perhaps
real
let
quick.
staff and the attorney draft a scope and bring
There you
back
go.
for your
That
review.
works. Okay, moving on. 11D. Oh, sorry, we're skipping. Do we need to do anything there? Or is that?
Nope, we
that's
skipped
all right.
it. You removed it.
11E, legal service contract renewal.
This is a ratification for Tony's contract that you guys verbally approved at your last meeting.
Move approval.
Yeah, and one other, just one.
Oh, yes.
One request, I made a typographical error. For litigation, we said not to exceed 225. We'd like to say 295, not to exceed.
Yeah, and Tony, one of the expectations, I'm not sure if it's explicitly called out, but we'd like to try to synchronize all of our vendor updates.
Yeah, so this ends fiscal year, Chelsea made that point.
No, but not just that. I mean, in your committee report, I'd like to mimic kind of
Okay, the
the
format
the
for
universal format of task you have out, you have
scheduled.
open,
Okay,
when you received it, who you received it by, and your target completion date. Just so it kind of mirrors engineering, just makes it cleaner.
Is the 19 agreement in here to supplement what is in the one that we're proposing? Is that why you?
That
put
was to show you that that was when that one expired, so
Okay,
you
that's
could
what I
have a
thought.
comparison.
So
I agree.
have a motion to have a second,
I said,
and the motion a second.
Please make sure you approve it with the amendment that Tony,
revised rate
the revised.
295 on page 131
Correct.
Yes.
for not to exceed for litigation.
Yep. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
I,
Great.
Thank you. And I will
You're
use that
sticking around,
format.
Tony.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to 12A, district manager report.
Laura, you want to take the admin?
Sure. Anybody have any questions on the administration monthly report?
We have Public Works Director here. If you have any questions regarding his report.
I don't have any to re-report. I don't know if I want to wait this for the supervisor's comment, or maybe you can help me. We kind of talked about. And I think Ed is going to be the one that's going to have a better recollection regarding the signs. So I talked to Keith. I don't know what he came about that.
There's a crosswalk
There was
sign.
a county pedestrian crossing sign that got hit by a car and he wanted us to take a look
Okay,
at it.
so they went in and took a look at it and added, because it was not on the original report as damaged by the hurricane. So I said, hey, we have another one that was a crash and we need to add that to the report. And then he responded to, we already let the county know, and with they're replacing it. And didn't we agree that we're going to keep those signs for 1 year? As if they were breaking in, we're gonna switch them to the nice green sign and keep it
Yes.
off.
That's what
So
I
when,
thought.
so yeah, so I guess that it was Brian. So none of that was passed on to Chelsea, Laura, or Keith. So I don't. So when he says he contacted the county to get all those new signs for us, I'm like, well, thank you, but we had agreed, and this is an even better opportunity that as they will break away, we give them a year so people get used to the signs, and we're gonna keep it all uniform. We start with Griffin, and then we start tackling Gateway Boulevard, because in Gateway Boulevard we have 3 or 4 different types, and then the ones in Griffin we have 2 types.
I agree.
So that's the conversation. I guess we need to give direction to them.
When we're doing that, are we talking about the signs that will be within the roundabout?
All of the signs. So like,
So every sign in the gateway, what used to be our right of way,
exactly.
all of those signs that are now the current steel standard county
Mhm.
post, we want to convert to the fluted
Green.
signs.
Yeah, so that's what it was, but I guess they didn't have that information.
Okay.
No.
Well, then
We
that-
did not have that information, but
that's
since
just
we,
going to have to take an inventory of those signs then.
well, since we spoke yesterday, I checked the conveyance document with the county, and any new signs that we put up have to meet LCDOT,
MUTCD requirements. Yeah.
which requires a breakaway sign. And our signs currently aren't, the signs we use now, the decorative signs are not breakaway. So I've requested a price proposal from Lycan Signs to get a price on the breakaway style that meets the new standards. And then also a price for what our standard sign is to see a comparison. So we'll bring that to you guys for
When
consideration.
we did that before we made the change, we didn't go, or they didn't have a requirement for breakaway at that time?
In the conveyance, they accepted all of our
That's
non-MUTCD
correct. I
signs.
accepted it as is, basically.
Oh, we put in new signs. We
They're
put
not-
in new signs.
They're not breakaway.
We put in new signs as part of that project.
But yes, but
Well, I
not
mean,
breakaway
they-
signs. I guess that's what he's
They
saying.
approved
Yes,
the plans.
but
I mean,
but
I'm not
but-
worried about that, but my point was, I don't think they've changed their rules, that there was a breakaway sign requirement, but if we're going to do that, that certainly adds to the cost.
It requires a foundation
Yeah.
and a breakaway point at 4 inches above the foundation.
I
which
guess the question is, did
a
they
lot more
update the
money.
WTCD since the last time? That might be-
Well, we just put in $136,000 worth of MUTCD compliant signs to be able to get LCSO to come into our community. And I guarantee you, they break away. Well, they break away. They truly break away. But
Yeah, I think the speed limit in the community has a lot to do with it too, so that's a factor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
well, but I agree with what you say, Flavia. Yeah.
yeah, because I think
That was the goal, to get uniformity of that design, and
Okay.
Lycans knows how to do it.
We will pursue, but understanding
It's a
that
lot.
it is going to
It's
cost
going to cost
and we knew
a
that.
lot of money.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of signs that need to
about
be replaced.
$1,300 a sign,
So we will,
How much a sign?
about $1,300 a sign.
we'll,
13?
Yes,
$100
yep.
a sign for breakaway.
so we will
How do we get
report
that
back
business?
Keith will report back at his next monthly report. If not sooner via email. We'll get it out to you
I
guys.
don't think there's anything uglier than that Commerce Lakes roundabout. All we need is one more sign and you will be able to see the other cars coming. There's so many signs.
Go over
But they
there
look
with the
ugly.
other one.
They look
That
ugly.
one's not as bad as the one on Griffin. It's just as bad.
So
So
do you have anything else for Keith?
Yeah, but again, emphasizing those, the ponds that are lower on our list, a priority with point repair issues that are serious, like the other, I mentioned at the last meeting, I showed you the picture. I mean, we got a 3-foot escarpment. That's flat on the residential side. That's dangerous.
So
We got to get that
Yeah, I
squared
can-
away.
I know you guys requested a list of our point repair list and the budget that was surrounded by that list, so I'll
Would
get
you
into
speak
that.
up just a little bit, please?
Sure, sorry. The point repair list itself, I haven't seen that personally, so I will get that and get it to you guys and find out what the $100,000 or whatever the amount was for that list and where it was. So I'll get that to you. Now, this issue with the banks sloughing, it's been this way for years, and they have been prioritized by residential needs. Any pond that is on a residential neighborhood with this issue is making the priorities.
and that's what we want. However, when we received the list, it did not mirror what you're saying. So we gave feedback that was the intent, but the list that we got, it did not
It did
show
not.
that. So we made some changes, and which would have prioritized residential, and you wouldn't prioritize the commercials and so forth. But that revised list never got back to us.
So
Okay.
Stevens, yeah.
Yeah, so the list Stephen was speaking of today was prioritized by staff based on the residential areas of need.
Okay, so just let.
And I will get that to you.
Did you ever find out what was the fish kill?
No.
Nothing?
No, oxygen levels were great the next day. So it probably happened based on how decayed the fish were. It probably occurred 5 days prior, probably from the hurricane, the change in the water. Yeah.
Scared the alligator out of the water. He wouldn't go in the water.
Yeah. So one thing I will be bringing to the board, hopefully in December, is a solar powered aerator pilot on that lake 117. So I'm getting costs right now for a solar powered aerator unit versus the standard electrical unit to see what it's going to cost to do them. So.
Okay, thank you.
Utility report.
Do you guys have any questions for Kenny?
No?
He
Is
does.
there anything you need, Kenny? Okay.
So I just want to,
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, there is one.
well, then there's two, because I have one as well.
Pressure. I getting, people are driving me crazy about pressure, saying that ever since the hurricane,
Irrigation?
the pressure, no, potable water,
Potable.
that their pressure all over Gateway Greens complaining about the water pressure down, way down where their showers, the water drips out of the shower.
Mhm.
I suggested calling over here, have you guys come over here. I'm having a feeling that it may be an internal housing issue, but do we run a pressure test
All the
and
time.
verify that we're still at what, 60 PSI?
We're running average about 60 PSI, yes.
The water
And
should
we
come
have,
out
we
of the
have
faucet.
two potable water pressure transducers in your community specifically
Right.
that give us a static,
And we're not having any issues?
no. None that we,
Sounds like it could
but
be a
again,
personal problem.
I'll tell you this, because I had you guys come over to my house and test it because my water pressure was bad, and after the hurricane, it was non-existent. And they came in, they checked it, they're like, no, you're fine. When I talked to my father, I decided to take all the caps from the sink. I don't know if the debris was because of the hurricane. It just, when the water actually was turned back on, it came in. It was the most
Plug
disgusting.
the filters?
They were horrible, like black little rocks, little pieces of pebbles, not just the white calcium, but black stuff. So it could be that. I was
That's what I'm
shocked at
wondering.
It
the
could be
amount
too.
That's what I'm
of
wondering.
the
stuff.
system was depressurized and then
Yeah, so
repressurized.
it
I
was
mean,
that. It just
that
pushed
could.
it all, and honestly, it was like
your
it was
sinks
night
or
and
screen,
day.
yeah.
It was like I had a brand new system in my house, and so we.
That's what I'm guessing it
Yeah.
is too, because it's spotty.
Yeah.
It's spotty.
And we continue to get the corporation stops. You saw in your community about a month back, and they are increasing, especially in Pelican. We've had 3 in the last month and a half, where we actually had to excavate and go down and break the corporation stop loose.
So Chelsea, why don't you have Randy push something out on our social pages, just, to
Perfect time to do it.
to make sure you're cleaning and checking your filters in your faucets and your showers.
Yep, we will. All right. You want to touch on the other item?
Yeah, the crane truck. This
Kitchen, everything. Because I decided to open all of it, and all of it. I mean, there was in the sink in the kitchen. It was a teaspoon of dirt. I was like, and it's
what I'm
it's only a
afraid
few
of.
years old, like maybe 2. So it's not. It was.
when you depressurize the system, that will happen. Just automatically that will, because it's pressurized, it's held up, and when you lose that pressure, it all will drop out. And you pressurize again.
And we did that multiple times.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it tonight.
Yeah. So what was the other item?
The crane truck has been on the capital budget for 2024. We are requesting, or going to request, that we push it forward.
What kind of truck is it?
It is our crane truck.
Oh, your crane truck.
Yes, it is. It has gotten 10 years of service out of it, and it has got a major issue right now with the turbofan, which is probably going to run us probably another close to 5,000, probably, with just a general estimate, and probably a month of downtime.
So what are you gonna trade it in and get another one?
We got this budgeted.
For
2024.
next. fiscal
Yes, I'm
year.
requesting that we pull
Move
it
it up.
forward.
So the
Yes.
point of bringing it up now is that in order to get on the state contract, they only open the window of opportunity for ordering, which happens to be next Monday. We have to upfit this truck, but in order to get on that state contract, it's first come, first serve. So what we're asking today is approval to issue a non-obligational letter of intent, which no money is spent. It's just a letter of intent that we'd like to order one and bring back the price at your next meeting for ratification. We're expecting 8 months before
About
it
an
would
8
even
month
show
lead
up.
time.
So that's getting close to next fiscal year. So we feel like we could move some capital money around in the enterprise fund to make this happen. But it is a priority need for the enterprise.
And we have gotten our money's worth out of the current.
I
So,
make that
Ed,
motion to
We
do
have
that.
gotten our money's
Yeah,
worth.
Ed's made a motion to approve. I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there you go.
Laura has one additional item for admin.
I'm working on spending some of the money that we set aside for technology for the boardroom, and I have purchased 6 iPads, so one for each board member and then a spare for Chelsea and I, or if somebody's breaks, we'll have a spare one. They are in transit. My goal is to have them to you before Christmas so that you can play with them and get used to them. They will be all set up with shortcuts right on the front of them where you can click to go to our website, click to go to your email. You'll just have to touch it. You won't have to worry
Now
about
you do it.
navigating. I knew you were leaving, that's why.
And I cannot stress.
And I am not a Mac person, so this is going to be a very large learning curve for
Well, and I
me.
cannot
so.
stress the fact that staff is going to set these up to make them as user-friendly as possible.
Click, just tap, and you'll go
I
where
wish
you
Bob
need
was
to.
here, but I did, we'll make sure that.
Yeah, that.
And they'll have
that's keyword,
cases.
as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll-
and the important part will be used only for district purposes in case anybody ever makes a public records request.
Right, then I can just take your iPad.
Can you find out if we can, maybe I should tell you this afterwards, but if you can network printing from it?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I
You
can
do it from iPhones, you can do it from iPads, yes.
I can set them up to print here.
So
That was actually on my
So that's what I
list.
was mentioning to Bob, right? So he can just print it.
Yeah. And
We're gonna work on setting everything up, yes.
It is on my list.
awesome.
What other thing? Oh, I had a meeting on yesterday. Yeah, this week is going fast. With the company that I'm working with to help get the accounting software implemented. With poking and prodding and some great help from Stephen Bloom poking some people at Infomark as well. We have a very current backup of our accounting data, and the plan as of right now, if there are no roadblocks, is I could begin training as soon as Monday in the new system. And I'm hoping to be able to produce financials for you guys and be able to tweak reports into layouts that you want them as early as with December's financials. So first of the year, our planned go live date was February 1st. So we are slightly ahead of schedule at this point.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Moving on to council updates.
Just a few items as a sort of an update for some of the items on the hot wire. We received a letter from Hotwire said they were not working in the area where the damage occurred at the time we said it occurred. So we need to reply to them. I know I'm not surprised because we get those kind of responses from those kind of contractors. So we will follow up with that. Been working, as I mentioned it here, with the bond team and working on the hearing set for December 5th and working with all the folks on the various documents that are needed for that. Working with Charles Mann still on the disclaimer, which is in addition to my written opinion I will provide for the commons property that can be used for the admin building. And I've been poking him, and Chelsea's been poking Charles. I think he's just busy, and he'll get to it, but we'll keep bothering him to get that document. And we request a closed door session on the Ford line matter on December 1st. We'd like to have it at 2 o'clock, as opposed to after the board, we do it at 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And have a follow-up closed door session just to give the board an update on a number of items.
At the next meeting at
Yes,
2.
2 o'clock. And so we need advice involving litigation strategy and expenditures. And we request that, and we'll send out the notices for that. And anything else, if the board has any questions?
Anything else for Tony? Okay, we'll just quickly review the future board agenda. You can pull that up.
I don't think it was attached,
No.
but you were given a hard
Yep, so the agenda management, you guys have a hard copy, if you can just take a look
Oh,
at it.
there. We got it pulled up too. So I did ask, just so you guys can grasp everything that we're working on, I did ask staff to start to put anything that they foresee in this fiscal year that would need your approval at some point, or that it'll be coming in front of you. That way you can see our workload. And again, if you have any items that you would like to see be moved up or reprioritized, or if you want to add any items, now would be the time to do so.
And again, this has been our standard routine, to be able to address and add items on here.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will move to supervisor comments. I'll start, Ed, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I've got three. First one is our HOA today learned from DEP that we were not successful in getting our grant for the irrigation controllers. Water savings is the whole idea. The project passed. South Florida Water Management District got up there and we were in line. They ran out of money. The deal was that you can come back next year, no guarantees whatsoever, but you can't do any work in the interim. So you wait. One of the board members suggested that since, because they've seen and read that we know as a district, we're going to be looking at about $2 million of possibly irrigation controller type work. Is there any thought that the CDD wants to make an application for a grant? And then we two piggyback each other and have a bigger project that might have a better chance. We paid, I think, Mainscape $3,500 to do the grant application. They did a great job and we were very successful. They just ran out of money.
3,500?
Yeah, for the grant application. Well spent. We were hoping to get $400,000. We were hoping to get 250% is the max. My point is that if we might want to have Mainscape Zane come in and talk to us about an opportunity of getting a grant for that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to
It's a
that.
possibility. We always ask about people say, can you get a grant? Well, here's one that we really truly qualify for.
If you could send me that grant opportunity, I'd love to read over it. That's
Okay,
one of the many hats I wore at the beach. So.
Okay. Next one. What happened out on Gateway Boulevard? There are tree limbs everywhere. What happened?
I want to tell you.
Go ahead.
Do we know?
It's our understanding a contractor, if we've reached out to our contact at FPL and we've reached out to our contact at the county. We don't know if it's a sub of FPL or a sub of Crowder Gulf, going out there and trimming and just leaving the piles.
Just let it drop on the sidewalk.
Yeah. So we've reached out to both contractors and we're waiting to hear back. We'll follow up.
Okay. Last one. We're having a immense problem with speeding. And I noticed the other night when I was over here for the county waste meeting, I had to pull out and go around and then only find out that it was a dead end. But I ran into 2 radar devices out there. Are those things functional?
No, sorry, I know you didn't ask her.
Answer, please.
Well, can we get them and fix them? Our association could use those big time.
Whose are they?
They belong to us.
They belong to us.
And we have it. And we used to use on Gateway Boulevard and Griffin, and then if communities need it, because
That's what we would like to do.
We used to ask, and Elle used to go with the truck and drop it off at whatever location. Well, the last time, which is probably about 2 years ago, that I asked to them to bring it in, both of the signs were broken. So I said,
what's
okay,
the cost?
can we repair it?
Can we get a cost to get them
Can we take the
fixed?
2 and fix it? And then Brian was involved in this, so they take it as much as he can. The cost over exceeded a price of getting a brand new one. And they mentioned if you need it, contact Lee County, they will bring it to you. So there's no point of us
Can we
fixing
just
ours.
revisit?
But
Yeah,
I
let's
think
revisit.
there's-
Let's
I-
revisit.
I'd like to revisit.
There's 2, those things are expensive.
Can I ask a couple questions?
But we could use it in our
Because this is
association.
new. This is new
Put it
information.
on our streets.
So what are you going to do with it?
Avoid somebody getting killed on our street speeding.
So what? You can't do anything about it.
Oh, yeah, we can. Lawyers advise us, we can do fining.
Well, you talk to the attorney over there if you think you can.
So it is a deterrent.
On private streets and roads, they can, depending upon the covenants, have finding committees, yes. They're private streets in Gateway Green.
So Chelsea,
Yeah, we can do it.
Yes,
But can we get somebody to get a price as to what it would cost to fix it? Because I would be willing, if it was be a reasonable price, we'll buy it from you for $1.298 and we'll fix it ourselves.
So
I
let's. test that.
need to do a little bit of homework,
Okay. But there's
because,
two of them out there.
because I am assuming, but we all know what assuming does, that those radars were placed out when the district owned the roadways, and the district no longer owns the roadways. So if there's
No,
a,
you still got 6
No.
roads.
No, it's,
You still got 6 roads.
yeah, and it was something that I'm not even using it. We could have used it for multiple purposes.
Okay.
So when we use it, like it's separate. It's like Ed. Like I would just request it from the district if it was available. If you guys weren't using it, then I would have taken it for 7 days.
let's
So
talk
even if we
after.
cannot put it
Well,
on
parameters
gateway,
of use is one thing. Seeing if they're fixable.
fixable,
Okay.
it's-
That's the
refurbishable,
key.
that's-
All right,
yeah,
I'll
just
look
look at
into that, and then we'll touch base,
Okay.
and
And
to
I'll,
the
Bobby's
meantime,
point,
I'll
you
get you
can
the grant.
request from
the sheriff.
from the sheriff.
So
Yeah.
that's the information.
Is that a price or they just?
No.
So
No,
you can request one from the
And if they're
sheriff's
not
office and they'll
using,
bring
and
it
if
out
they
to you
have one
have
available,
one
they'll bring
available.
it to you.
at no cost.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
That you can
And-
through LCSO.
Yeah. Actually, no, I did. I actually have it.
That's funny because
They
they have
do-
never mentioned that word.
Well,
They
you know me,
mentioned-
I ask for everything. So they came in. I'm just my memory. They came in. They brought it. They left there for 7 days, and then when it was time to pick it up, they actually gave me a report. It was like a 10-page report, and printed. And they
Yeah.
told me like how many cars.
Well,
every
that's
day.
really funny because they're suggesting to us that we go to the company that we've just purchased to do our new access control, ISN, and rent their Nighthawk. And you know about salty. That's very expensive.
I can forward you that report
Okay.
since it's an HOA matter
Okay.
to you, and then you can look
who's
into
the
it,
point of
what they
contact
offer.
Ed should go through?
LCSO.
I'll follow, yeah, LCSO, I'll follow
In the
up.
meantime, though, if we can check that, because I'd be willing to buy as surplus if it's fixable at a reasonable price.
Okay. All right. What else we got?
That's all I have.
Okay.
You're on member items.
Flavia, I'll go to you.
Okay, so I had signs to cover that, and then I had the tree trimming, so you can.
We're gonna follow up on that.
So, any update on the roundabout?
With regards to
This-
the plantings,
Yeah.
it's so I did reach out to the superintendent's right-hand guy, sent him an email, sent him pictures, and said, hey, this is, our board raised the concern, this needs to be addressed. I reached out to the assistant principal down at the school and said the same thing. I have got to get over there and drive by it and take a look. I mean, you
Okay.
drove by it.
Well, I thought we were gonna look and ask Mainscape what would be a cost to include that. So,
Yep.
if you can get whatever one you can.
Okay.
So, and regarding the holiday, anything that you need from us as board members?
So we, for your Winterfest, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. We are promoting Winterfest. We're ordering some banners. I think we did ask the chair, to come and speak. Just, we have a very packed agenda. I think it's 6 to 10, 4 hours. We're trying to get the sheriff out here to speak. It's going to be a free event, huge event. I think from a staff perspective, we're good right now, but we would love for you all to come and
What day?
participate. December
Third.
3rd.
The first Thursday in December. Or
First Saturday,
the
December
3rd.
3rd from 6 to 10 p.m. at the Sherman Soccer Complex.
Okay.
Santa's
Will
coming.
you forward the agenda out to the board so they can see what's shaping up?
Yes, that's
It's a
tentative.
proposed agenda.
Yeah, that's fine. But I think they should be able to kind of see what's happening.
And then the last item is regarding the Gulf Coast site. I was in attendance of the last meeting, their final meeting they had the other day, and I know Ed was here as well. I spoke with Molly. I gave her some feedback on how that meeting went and the presentation. She's willing to come back on December.
15th, if you have that meeting, December 15th, yes.
I just read, she actually said December 3rd, so I thought she meant December 1st. Her email says December 3rd, to come in and speak on the changes and items. And I sent her a ton of
Who's
questions.
Molly?
She is the communications for solid waste, the county.
I thought it was Amanda.
Different group, same group,
But-
different hat. She's the
Um,
PIO. Molly is the PIO for solid
I mean,
waste.
I brought up some concerns. I did a lot of watching at that meeting. What concerned me the most was the structure of it, because the message, it was different depending which corner of the room you went.
That's right. I heard the same thing.
So I asked her, I said, whose decision was to make this type of presentation? She said it was hers. I said, well, I'm not opposed. However, the message is not clear. If I heard somebody ask a question there and then the same person asking here, and you get different questions. And I said, I haven't asked any questions, but the 3 questions that I'm going to give you as an example, I said, you got 2 people giving completely different questions. You get the engineer for waste management giving one question, and then you get the worker giving another. So which one it is? I just want to know so then we can give it. She says that the reason why they didn't do it as a form of presentation and then questions is because they didn't want to.
They didn't want to
mob.
they didn't want a scene with a TV station.
Correct.
That's what it
So,
was.
so I think we lost it because I was able to point out the amount of inconsistency on their answers. So I told her that I would appreciate that if she could come to either our meeting or either the President's Council meeting, because that's sooner, and have a presentation. I said, we keep our residents are not that wild. Have the presentation, get your answers correctly. And I gave her, I think, 10 other items that in addition that I saw that they didn't have a plan or an answer. And I think it will be beneficial for either to come on December 1st, or even if we can set 10, 15 minutes and have that conversation at the President's Council meeting, because some of the items that I was concerned to today that they don't have an answer for it.
I mean, I think it should be at a board meeting, that way we can record it and broadcast it.
Well, the issue they've got right now is the county's trying to figure out how to extend the time for FEMA. That's critical.
Yeah.
FEMA's going to be leaving here within the next week if that extension from 45 days doesn't go to 120.
FEMA won't leave. The percentage shared cost is the big difference. Right now, they're at 100%.
Correct.
FEMA pays, and if that extension doesn't occur, then it goes to 25/75, where the 25% gets paid by the local government
Yeah,
collecting it.
Apparently that's a salty number, as I understand it, because of the volume, the sheer volume.
Yes, which is why they're asking
My
the
suggestion
extension.
is open up the dump for a year, 2 years, fill it, close it, and gone forever. Because the county does not have enough space to hold all the waste.
So I think the point Flavia is trying to make is it the board's direction for staff to coordinate with solid waste to have them come in and do a quote unquote dog and pony show at the earliest meeting possible?
Well, if you do it, keep in mind, you'll have the crowd that's really, really vocal about this. They'll be in attendance, especially if they know the TV stations are going to be here, because they're going to make a scene.
Not that I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, but that's what it is. And I understand that there's a need. The main concerns, and because I was listening, not really necessarily involved in the questions, is the time frame. So when they explain that the C&D that's going into the waste pro, and then the part that's getting sorted at the front, which is C&D plus agriculture, that's the state. Nobody knew about that.
I know it.
So when people are inquiring, like, listen, you told us a C&D is going to be back to this area, but now you have around 82 and you have other things. So they say, well, we can't answer any questions because that's the state. So then my question was, is the plan, because you have the estimated 18 to 24 months to fill this, okay? Does that include the C&D that's getting dropped by the state in front? No.
The C&D is not permitted.
So
that's the problem.
So I said, is the plan to get the C&D that is at the front from the state and put it in there? Because that would expedite the amount of time to fill that. So, and one answer was no, one answer was yes, and then the third one was like, we don't know. So I said, well, at least we can cure that issue. If we're gonna do it, let's get it to the 2.2 as fast as we can and have it the state, because there's no way.
Let's bring them to our meeting where we can address these
Yeah.
issues and put them on record for that. And then if there's specific
Consensus?
concerns,
Is there consensus?
yeah, I just
Either
want
or
to
to me.
you go with them having come to our board meeting as opposed to a President's Council meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then if there are specific issues that you're hearing, please make sure we're trickling those through Chelsea so you can help board Bird Dog from a centralized.
And I want somebody from solid waste. I don't want a vendor. That vendor deal, I was same thing. I was here with Flavia. They told you what they wanted you to hear. And they've got a monetary deal at stake.
We'll extend the invite.
Yep, I think that's a good idea.
What else you got? Mr. Guy? Anything?
I just wanted to tell you what a lot of fun it's been for the last 12 years. And only Tony has been around, well, Ed's been around kind of to understand how much progress we have made in that time. It's almost impossible to describe what an amateur operation this was 12 years ago and what a professional operation it is now. Even though we spent too much time worrying about the placement of the building. But that's local government for you. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I enjoyed the friendship and the repartee, and I hope Carol has as much fun as I do.
And again, I think the worst of our problems are debating whether we have 2 rooms or 4 rooms or which email to send stuff for printing. I think we've definitely come a long way. I have just 2 things. One, I do want to compliment staff on all the work that they've been putting into the, what do we call it, the Christmas event, holiday event, Winterfest, whatever it is. And it will be nice to have the community all back together again after a long period of time. That has been a signature event in this community for a long time, and it's going to be good to see everyone. So I would encourage you to make sure that we're communicating this out to our communities. Would love to make sure that we have some good representation from Pelican to come. If you're looking for volunteers, have we reached out to the high school?
Yes, we've reached out to both.
The other thing, just really quick, I want us to be thinking about it. We've already kind of been doing this anyway, but we've been talking about having supervisors as, identified liaisons for certain things. There's a precedent for that. We've had board members be identified as liaisons for specific projects and initiatives. I want us to be thinking about extending that maybe to like our advisory councils. So as an example, we would kind of elect or nominate someone to be a board liaison for PPAC or a board liaison for Stony Brook, and then whatever else comes through.
Parks and Rec Committee.
Parks and Rec, for committee, maybe call them whether they're sponsor or something along those lines. So I think it's important simply to have a board member take part in those to bring that information back. We do it organically anyway with ponds and engineering and some other things. We do that organically, but I think as we move forward, it might be a good idea to officially say, okay, Ed is the liaison for this, or Flavia is the liaison for this, or whatever. So just think on that, and I think we'll probably officially bring some recommendations back at one of the future board meetings.
Okay. I just had one question, if you're done with your items. Sure. We're moving forward from our staff perspective as if we're having the December 15th meeting. So, and we're scheduling items for that date. I know historically you guys have canceled it, but it's kind of early in the month. So just from a staff perspective, we're planning on having that meeting.
We have 2 meetings left.
Yep.
First and 15th.
First and the 15th, yes.
Yep. And also, just thanks for all the good times, Bill, and welcome. We'll see you soon. December 1st. We'll keep the chair warm for you. With that being said, I'll call the meeting adjourned at 5:17.
Get to your basketball game.